friends and family would get text replies back, but they said that it just didn't quite sound like Kelsey.
I did have a sinking feeling in my stomach.
This unknown man is seen walking to Kelsey Schelling's car and is seen driving away with the car.
I mean, we're trying everything. Breaks my heart.
Almost 2 years after Kelsey's disappearance, a mysterious message giving everyone hope comes through that Help Find Kelsey Facebook page.
It was saying, if I have information about Kelsey, can I remain anonymous?
Kelsey Schelling grew up in the tiny farm town of Holyoke, Colorado.
Holyoke is around 2.5 to 3 hours away from Denver.
It's quiet. It's kind of have your own way.
Perfect place to raise a family.
Yeah, real good place, yeah. Safe. You're hoping anyway, you know.
Holyoke is definitely agricultural. There's only one stoplight, and if you want to go to a Walmart, you've got to head west to Sterling. That's 50 miles away.
In the early 90s, Kelsey's parents, Doug and Laura, owned the local grocery store in Holyoke. Kelsey and her brother Colby seemed to be living out the American dream. I first met Laura Saxton back in 2016 when 2020 was first looking into Kelsey's story.
You know, she's just always been a little firecracker. Hi, Kel. Hi, Cocoa Bean.
Kelsey. Kel.
She wasn't a kid that wanted to stay up till midnight, you know, where you usually have to fight your kids to go to bed, like at 8:30. That's when she wanted to go to bed. She'd go into her room and pull back her covers, and each animal had to be in a certain place, and everything had to be just perfect.
When she got to be 2, 3, 4 years old, she was feisty. You'd try to give her a kiss, and she'd slap me pretty good, so I kind of learned my lesson, you know.
My first impression of Kelsey, she was just an active, outdoors, fun-loving girl, liked to do a lot of sports. When my daughter and Kelsey first met up, their true love was playing basketball together.
I was her coach, yeah. Here she is right here.
Wow. Is she the point guard?
Mm-hmm.
When we were still in elementary school, her dad took us out and let us drive on the dirt roads, which is pretty common around here. Kelsey could just laugh about things like that, and her laugh made us laugh. She'd start to giggle, then you would start to giggle, and so that's what made being around Kelsey so special.
Kelsey was a tiny little thing, you know, shorter than me.
The Kelsey that I knew didn't take a lot of crap off her classmates. You know, she wasn't afraid to stand her ground.
But as Kelsey enters her teens, the Schelling family is rocked when Doug and Laura decide to divorce.
Going through a divorce is really hard as a kid.
Yeah, the split of our parents certainly had an impact on both of us.
Colby.
Colby lived with me, and Kelsey lived with her mom. It was a real dark time for the whole family.
It was a rough age. You know, after her dad and I got divorced, it was just she and I together alone for a lot of years.
She was in a bad emotional place, and I don't think that was due to her character and nature. I think that was circumstantial.
When Laura and I was going through a divorce, she was on antidepressant pills, and she ended up taking like 3 of them or something.
She ended up in the hospital for several days, and it was pretty scary. I mean, I thought we were going to lose her at that point.
She was in a coma?
She was.
I felt like it was a turning point. I mean, when any young school-age kid has parents who are splitting up, that's a lot to take on. She actually stopped doing all of the sports and activities. It seemed like she was more removed.
I think Kelsey was just looking for a change. She wanted to figure out what was her niche.
Kelsey was always, I think, working through, how do I be better? How do I grow? How do I move past this?
Our senior year, she was the prom queen. You don't get that without showing people kindness and respect and truly being embraced by your peers, you know.
Kelsey taught me, she taught me perseverance.
Eventually, she moves on. She goes to Northeastern Junior College. What did she want to do with her life?
She wanted to get a degree in psychology. I think in her heart, she wanted to work with children.
We officially became roommates January 2011. If all of us were bored at 3 o'clock in the morning, she'd be the one to say, let's go cause problems, I guess. Not bad problems, she was just, you know, out for a good time. She loved to have fun. That was her favorite thing to do.
And for a while, carefree Kelsey is back. And then she meets Dante Lucas. He's about to change her life forever.
It was a big deal that she was dating Dante. He was part of the basketball team. They were kind of the popular kids and everything. By the time Kelsey got to know him, she felt proud that she knew who he was because he was somebody to know.
He had dreams of making it big in the NBA.
Kelsey thought she met the man of her dreams.
Marker. Please say your full name and give us your title.
Lisa Wayne, attorney at law. Well, I had the privilege of being down in Pueblo in the 80s, and I was a public defender. Pueblo's a small town in southern Colorado. Used to be a steel mill town. The steel mill shut down in the 80s.
Pueblo was founded and built by people that came from all over the world.
We're the home of the Pueblo chili. Everyone that lives there is so proud of this town.
Kelsey's love interest, Dante Lucas, lives in Pueblo. Sarah Lucas, Dante's mother, is raising all 4 kids on her own in this Colorado town set on what's called the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. In the town of Pueblo, a 6'7" star athlete stands out.
I coached Dante Lucas in youth football. He was a coach's dream. He was a real polite kid, wanted to learn the game of football and just really quiet. Dante Lucas was super close with his mother, Sarah. On the football field, she was one of the most supportive parents. For Dante, football wasn't his sport. I'd say he's a better basketball player, which happened later in his career through high school here in Pueblo.
Dante Lucas was a very well-known basketball player. He was going to be the one who made it out of Pueblo.
He had dreams of making it big in the NBA.
It was obvious that he wanted to pursue it, but the family spoke more about it than he did. We were told by Dante's mom, Sarah, that he was getting contacted from North Carolina and Kentucky. Their dream was that he was going to make the NBA and make a good life for himself.
When I first met Dante, he was a freshman here at Central High School. He was 6'7". If you have that kind of size, you know, you can make a lot of things happen.
It just amazed me as a guy in class that was so quiet was just as popular as he was.
He was a really good role model for the young kids in the neighborhood.
His attitude was always good. He was good with his teammates. He just matured into a very good basketball player.
His overall drive as a student from day one, it wasn't up to snuff. As a teacher, I'd try to get him involved with the rest of the class. I talked to him about that several times.
Whether it was his grades or his skill, Dante didn't get into an NCAA school, but he wanted to continue to play basketball. Dante gets recruited to Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado. He's playing basketball when he meets Kelsey Schelling, and they begin dating.
Kelsey and another one of our roommates actually went to a basketball game and were scouting out the cute boys on the team, saw Dante and decided to go up and talk, and that's how she and Dante met. By the time Kelsey got to know him and really got kind of involved, she felt proud that she knew who he was because he was somebody to know. They spent a lot of their extra free time together.
When did you first meet him?
I never met him. I saw him play basketball a couple times.
Kelsey never really said anything about bringing him home to meet the parents.
He was not committed to her by any means.
Kelsey could have had anybody, but she kind of always took attraction to people that needed help, that she thought she could turn around.
I believe that if Dante was, failing or had bad grades, that his basketball career at the school would be definitely on pause. I don't honestly think that Dante really cared to learn. Kelsey would try to help him. He would just seem very disinterested and not really care.
I think she just hoped if she was good enough to him that, he would realize that, she's the one.
I think Kelsey stayed with Dante because she found someone that gave her attention even if it wasn't the right kind of attention. And I think Dante was with Kelsey because he got money from Kelsey, borrowed Kelsey's car, basically lived a life that everyone works for but didn't have to do anything for it. Just had to be there.
There were good days in the relationship with Dante, and then it just went south. He would play with her heart. I could definitely see some bubbliness fading out as he broke her spirit.
Kelsey texts Dante, "I'm really hurt. The way you talk about me to other people is your true feelings. I guess I'm just a fool. I'm so heartbroken." Days later, Dante would respond, "My phone's been dead the past few days."
And then afterwards she'd be like, oh, well, he's better, he's gonna be better. And then she'd be happy.
Dante left Northeastern Junior College because he was kind of done with his studies.
After Kelsey leaves Northeastern Junior College, she lands in California, but she doesn't stay there long. Why did she decide to leave?
Mostly it was financial reasons.
Where did she go from there?
That's when she moved back to Colorado, was living in Denver in her dad's apartment, and she had started working at Floor and Decor.
When did she start going out with Dante again?
Over the holiday time frame, November, December, he would stay with her, but then he'd go back to Pueblo sometime.
Were you worried that he would come back and what that would do to her?
Absolutely. I saw what it was like before, and I didn't want that to happen to her again. She didn't want that to happen to her again, because she knew the kind of person that she became when she was with him.
And how in the world did they get back together?
I don't know. She missed him, I guess.
Kelsey has a surprise for her family. She's pregnant.
She called me when she found out she was pregnant, and she was stressed, very stressed. I could tell she was scared to tell me. Just told her, I will support you. It's going to be okay. She was happy.
Did she tell you anything about Dante's reaction?
She said he was mad.
She and Dante would be texting, and he would stop responding either during arguments that they were having. She would then get upset, wait to hear back from Dante, and left in limbo, and it was very aggravating for her.
Kelsey texts Dante, "You were my best friend, the only thing I lived for day after day. What happened to us? It wasn't supposed to be like this."
One time I'd talk to her and she'd say, he's kind of coming around and Dante will never abandon the baby.
But a child with Kelsey was not in Dante's plans.
Kelsey gets a text from Dante, and he says that he has something for her. He alludes to a surprise, and he wants her to come to Pueblo.
Kelsey had come home. When she was here, she slept a lot. I knew it was hard on her working full-time in Denver. Now with the new pregnancy, she was really tired. I said, I will support you. Whether Dante is in the picture or not in the picture, it's going to be okay. She was happy. She wanted that baby. She wanted to be a mom.
She was in a good place.
Yes. So I'm thankful for those couple of days that we got before she went missing.
My name is Zach Hillstrom. I am a reporter at the Pueblo Chieftain. I think that people have been trying to fill in the blanks about what happened to Kelsey from the time that it happened, and not just when the mystery seemed like it might be a permanent one. On February 3rd of 2013, Dante Lucas, her boyfriend, was trying to convince Kelsey Schelling to come visit him in Pueblo that day. She responded with a firm no. It seems like they fought a lot that night. Just before 3 a.m., Kelsey texted Dante, "You don't have to be in a relationship with me. You don't have to marry me. You don't have to have a happy little family with me. You don't have an obligation to me. You're good. Don't worry. Good night." Lucas's response to that was, "Oh, I know all of that. Thanks for stating that for me."
So it was February 4th, and Kelsey had taken 3 home pregnancy tests. So she went into the doctor and had the doctor confirm to her that she was actually pregnant. She got the sonogram done. She even had the photo in hand of her sonogram. She was able to share that with her mom.
What did you think when you saw the baby?
I was happy. I knew that she was happy.
She showed up to work probably 10 minutes late. She just had her ultrasound. She's really excited. She was in a great mood that day.
That morning, Kelsey told Dante that she had finished her appointment and that her due date was September 13th. Lucas's response to that was cool. He asked her to skip work and come to Pueblo. She texted him, "I'm not going to come get you so we can fight all day." He texted back, "I don't want to fight at all. I want to give you this." She writes back, "Give me what?" He says, "Just wait and see for yourself. You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you anyway, so you can see for yourself."
Kelsey decides to go down to Pueblo after work.
She clocked out of work at a little bit after 8:40 p.m. and hit the road to see Dante in Pueblo.
So Denver to Pueblo Drive, right down I-25. It's about 2 hours long. It's just one straight path. Not a lot of people are out on the roads. It is a lonely, quiet drive. While she's driving down to Pueblo, Dante sends her a text saying, "Let's meet at the Southside Walmart." She parks her car there.
She texted him at 10:20 saying she'd arrived, and he replied that he'd be there shortly.
She's waiting, and she's getting impatient, like any girlfriend would.
At 11:10 p.m., he still hadn't shown up to the Walmart.
That's when Dante says, "Let's meet at our spot," which is in the neighborhood of his grandmother's home, and that's where Dante was staying at the time. She moved her car there from the Southside Walmart. She was just parked on the side of the road in this residential neighborhood. So then she's left waiting there again, and she's still impatiently texting him.
The last confirmed message from Kelsey was sent at 11:18 p.m. She was asking Dante, "Where are you? I've been here for over an hour just waiting."
The following day, the 5th, she didn't show up for work. So I tried calling her, couldn't get a response. So then I shot her a text message asking her where she was, why she wasn't at work. Got a text message back right away saying that she was in the hospital having some tests done. And she said that she was not having a baby anymore, it was growing in the wrong place.
I tried calling her on Wednesday. She didn't answer her phone, which is kind of pretty rare. And then I texted her, I said, "Hey, give me a call." I got a text message back, said, "I'm not feeling good, I'm on the couch, I'll call you tomorrow."
I kept trying to call, and she wouldn't answer. Toward the end of the week, it was going directly to voicemail. So then, in the back of my mind, I'm starting to get concerned.
After Kelsey had driven to Pueblo, there was never a phone call that was answered from her phone.
Kelsey is not the type of person who would not talk to her friends. She was glued to her phone.
Friends and family would get text replies back, but they said that it came in a voice that just didn't quite sound like Kelsey. It was just short, quick responses.
Generally, any text message I had from Kelsey, words were spelled and there was punctuation, and they didn't have that.
I got to looking at the text message and it's like, man, I don't think that was her.
Why didn't you think that was her?
Just the verbiage in it and stuff. I mean, it just didn't seem like, her texting me.
Then on that Saturday morning, it's like the whole world just unraveled. All of her friends started contacting us saying, we've been trying to reach Kelsey and we can't reach her. I called Doug, her dad, and said, something is wrong. And so then we all drove up to Denver that day. Went into the apartment. There was no sign of her in the apartment. And that's when we called the Denver police.
Family members were visibly upset. They were frantic, actually, almost feverishly asking for any help they could get in trying to locate her.
Did you reach out to Dante?
And I did contact him to ask him, if he knew where she was.
What did he sound like on the phone? Because the call that you're making to him is, Kelsey, the woman that you are with, the mother of your child, is missing. We are desperate to find her.
Nothing, no. Not worked up, not, just...
He's not scared? What can I do? How can I help?
No, he just says, if I hear from her, I'll let you know. And then a little bit later, he got back with me. He said, I heard from Kelsey. She called from a private number. She said she doesn't have her phone. And she said she'll be getting a hold of you.
Intimating that she's alive,
Mm-hmm.
she's out there.
And I said, well, can you track that number? And he's like, yeah, I'll try and figure out what the number was. And then, of course, he never did.
When this case first came in, I called Dante. He was telling me that he had seen her and had talked with her and spent time with her more recently than any of her family members, any of her friends. After I got off the phone, I did have a sinking feeling in my stomach. The following Friday, February 15th, that morning is when we drove down to Pueblo to turn the investigation over to the Pueblo Police Department.
We, in the beginning, were trying not to call him a suspect, just to try to build a rapport with him and try to sit down and get him to open up.
Can you kind of tell me just briefly what happened?
Well, early Tuesday morning, she came down to Pueblo.
During the course of the interrogation with Dante Lucas, he reveals some pretty shocking things about Kelsey and about the baby.
Now to the mysterious disappearance of a Denver woman.
Pregnant woman who vanished. Kelsey was 8 weeks pregnant.
Last seen in Pueblo, visiting her boyfriend Dante Lucas.
So when do you start talking to Dante Lucas?
We start talking to him fairly quickly as far as what is going on.
Police bring Dante in for questioning, and immediately he denies a romantic relationship with Kelsey.
Now, is she your girlfriend, or
no? We never were actually in a relationship.
Can you kind of tell me just briefly what happened?
She came down to Pueblo, and we're talking, whatever. We ended up, she ended up, getting mad at me or whatever.
Dante tells Officer Robinson that Kelsey slept in her car in Pueblo.
He said that they met up again the following morning and that he brought Kelsey Schelling to Parkview Medical Center, where she went inside.
So went to Parkview, and she went in and stayed for about almost 2 hours, hour 45 too.
We have no record of Kelsey Schelling ever being here at Parkview Medical Center.
Now, what do you check to find out if she was here or not?
We have a medical records system that keeps track of every patient that's ever walked through our doors.
So for you, there was no way she's ever here?
That's correct.
He alluded to the fact that she may have had a miscarriage.
She came out and she told me she wasn't pregnant.
Just the day before in Denver, Kelsey's doctor told her that the baby was healthy.
So then after we left Parkview,
Dante claimed that he and Kelsey then went to the Southside Walmart. Kelsey was going to grab some snacks before she made the drive back to Denver.
She went to go get some snacks, like something to eat, because she was hungry. And then came back out, we ended up talking, and she ended up telling me, get out of the car at Walmart, and she didn't want to take me home. So I just left from Walmart, started walking home, and then my mom came and got me.
But surveillance video from Walmart reveals a different version of events.
He contends that the two of them are together, and clearly, based on the surveillance, it's one person. It's him getting out of the car, and no one else exits.
When the car was parked at Walmart on February 5th, police believe that it was Dante Lucas parking that car, getting out and walking away. They have pretty good surveillance video showing it.
The car sat there overnight.
The morning of February 6th, this unknown man is seen walking to Kelsey Schelling's car, parked at the Southside Walmart, and is seen driving away with the car. We have no idea who that person was in that video.
It's a car that that person is familiar with. And we know earlier that Dante had the key.
Who do you think that someone was that came back and drove that car away?
You know, there's similarities to Dante, but it's nothing that we can 100% say that is the person who drove it away.
When Dante Lucas talked with police, he didn't paint the best picture of Kelsey. He painted a picture of, just that she was kind of troubled.
She had bad anxiety, she has anxiety attacks, so she had pills for that.
What can you tell me about that?
She's told me before that she's ended up in the hospital a few times from overdosing, I guess.
Dante cast her to police as someone who had troubles with drugs. No?
I don't believe that, no.
She just one time she told me about suicide, but she told me she ended up in the hospital behind it multiple times.
When she was 15 years old, she did. So yes, she has had that in her past. But if she committed suicide, you would find her body. I mean, she was happy. She wanted that baby. She wanted to be a mom.
So at this point, Kelsey has been missing for more than a week. But on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2013, her car is discovered.
The car of a missing Denver woman has been found in Pueblo.
Detectives will be examining Kelsey's car.
It was big news when Kelsey's car was found at St. Mary Corwin Medical Center. How did it get there? What happened to Kelsey?
I knew once her car was found that something horrible had happened, because there's just no way that she would have gone somewhere and left her car.
To find the car and no Kelsey.
And no Kelsey. We did not have any good security footage that could tell us who dropped off the car, how the car got there. Normally, if someone was going to go away for a few days, they take their car with them. So we are now leaning towards foul play. So we accelerate the case.
Police start working backwards. They start going through surveillance video, and what they find is pretty surprising. Less than 12 hours after she would have arrived in Pueblo, surveillance video shows Dante in her car at an ATM in Pueblo. He's driving and he takes $400 out of Kelsey's bank account.
But is it suspicious for you that he uses that card after the date where you pinpoint Kelsey was missing?
It is part of the suspicious activity, yes.
Because Dante withdraws money from Kelsey's account without her in the car, Dante is brought in for a second time by Pueblo police.
This is the second time I talked to you.
These detectives had a wealth of information to go at him.
Why'd you get the money?
The money? Mm-hmm. What money are we talking about?
$11.39 at the bank. You're on video, dude. In her car with her credit card. You're on tape.
Oh, this is the 400 that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
This is for my phone bill.
Why didn't she go with you to the ATM? It's not in the car. It's on the video.
It may have been while she was in the hospital. I'm not sure about like I said, my time frame has been messed up.
The detective moves on to another topic, talking about why there's no record of Kelsey ever showing up at the hospital.
There's no record of her ever being at Parkview.
That's like all I have to say.
Now here's the thing. Instead of pressing Dante on these contradictions, they move on to an unrelated topic.
When you dropped her off, when she dropped you off at Walmart, where were you parked at? I mean, apparently you guys know, so, I don't understand why you, I told him one time, that's all I can say about it.
When she dropped you off, when was that again?
Can I speak to a lawyer, please? So if you guys keep asking the same questions over and over, I would like to speak to a lawyer.
Once he requests a lawyer, all questions come to a halt.
Unfortunately, this is a very poorly executed interview. I think it's a tremendous missed opportunity.
Once he shut down, our avenues of trying to talk to him end.
And how did you read that?
As the possibility that he knows something.
Dante Lucas was arrested on February 15th. They don't arrest him on murder charges. He was arrested on felony identity theft charges for using Kelsey's debit card at the bank that day.
But those charges were later dropped when investigators found out that Kelsey did, on occasion, give him permission to use her bank card.
How do you prove she did not or did give him permission at that time? And since you had permission to do it before, it makes it a very difficult case to prosecute.
He's released. He's, living his life.
Do we suspect foul play? Yes. Have we come up with a body? No. Dante is a person of interest in the fact that she's missing.
Hoping to get Dante to talk, police bring in the person who knows him better than anyone.
Keep us up at night. This was a story that I spent 4 years working on and reporting on.
5 years of no answers.
I wanted so badly for there to be justice in this case.
To let you see
Even though Kelsey's car was found in Pueblo, Kelsey hadn't been found. Police, maintained at that time that it was a missing persons case.
When the charges of identity theft are dropped in March of 2013, police can't get Dante to talk again.
You'll have a chair right there. I'll grab your water and we'll be there in a second.
So they take a different tact. They decide to speak to his mother, Sarah Lucas.
I would love to clear Dante and move on. If Dante would come in, do a polygraph, we ask him like 5 questions. If he passes that, we can move on and look other directions.
I will relay that to his lawyer, and I know my son wants nothing more than to find out what happened to her.
Detectives ask her about February 5th. That's the day that Dante was seen on surveillance camera parking Kelsey's car at Walmart.
Did you in fact pick Dante up?
I did pick my son up.
At that time, did you see Kelsey? Was she with him or?
No, she wasn't with him then.
Do you know where she was?
Yes.
Sarah gives Dante an alibi for his whereabouts on February 6th, when that unknown man is seen moving Kelsey's car from the Walmart.
On the 6th, Dante, or somebody that looks remarkably similar to Dante, I'm not going to say 100% was him, but went back and picked it up.
There's no way that was him. There's no way he was at home. I know my son. He's not capable of hurting anybody.
But it's been 3 years since this case happened. No one's been charged.
That's right. You have inconsistencies, lies, but without a body or any direct evidence that tells us something happened to her, to a homicide, it may happen one day, but right now, we haven't had any evidence to reclassify it.
You look at the Pueblo Police Department, they probably didn't have as many resources, and her family quickly became frustrated with how this investigation was progressing, or kind of the lack thereof any progress.
Kelsey's still not a victim, according to them. There's not been a criminal act committed, according to them. We just want an effective investigation done into Kelsey's disappearance.
Her family is pleading for your help.
We're doing everything in our power to find our missing loved one.
We tried to push Pueblo police for answers. We were there for every press conference, every event. We just weren't getting any new information from them at all. And to me, that was so frustrating.
The investigation really isn't being handled properly.
Laura Saxton always been a fierce advocate for her daughter, and I don't think she'll rest until Kelsey is found.
Many in Pueblo are not giving up on finding clues that could help find Kelsey Schelling.
Why do you think people feel so strongly about Kelsey's case?
They can't believe it. They try and imagine what if it was their child.
We're gonna break up again over here.
In May of that year when she went missing, they started doing their own searches because they didn't think police were looking hard enough.
The whole community was rallying. There were so many searches for her body all over the city of Pueblo.
This is probably one of the largest groups we've had in a while.
after 3 years. That means a lot, so thank you.
Come on, kid.
People were scattering, just looking for any shred of evidence.
It's becoming harder to come back. I dread the trips, but I know I have to do it.
She comes home empty-handed. The one thing that she doesn't have is Kelsey.
They never found anything on those searches. Then those searches turned into anniversaries.
Kelsey Schelling disappeared
and hopefully some tips and leads in the case. Kelsey's family also set up a Facebook page, Help Find Kelsey.
It was one source or one place where people could come together to generate information, maybe from even people that didn't want to call police.
You get a Facebook message.
It was from a woman saying, if I have information about Kelsey, can I remain anonymous? It's so awful. He sold her into sex trafficking. I almost feel like I went insane. What if she is still out there somewhere?
We were on the ground to investigate, and I couldn't believe what happened.
Right when they're at the trunk, get ready.
It's Ryan Smith, ABC News.
Is seen driving away with the car.
And Kelsey's just gone.
Kelsey had taken 3 home pregnancy tests.
Now, is she your girlfriend or no? We never were actually in a relationship.
The lead suspect stops talking.
Can I speak to a lawyer, please?
It's a dead end.
These are the stories that keep us up at night.
But an undercover volunteer befriends him.
I had to play the role that I didn't know what was happening, so I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what is happening?
Okay, they're both rolling now.
There's a sting operation.
Right when they're at the trunk, get ready. We're about 10 seconds away.
Marcus Ryan Smith, ABC News. How you doing?
I know that my testimony could potentially help take him down.
The anxiety level was high, the tension was high.
A witness in the Dante Lucas trial
was found shot to death. Another moment where your jaw hit the floor.
When they came and told us the verdict was in, we all were just like, oh my God.
Her mother simply won't give up on finding Kelsey. For nearly 2 years, Laura Saxton had been on a desperate search for answers about her daughter Kelsey, who suddenly disappeared in February of 2013.
There will be a renewed search for clues in the case of Kelsey Schelling.
Just through seeing Laura Saxton, the tears, the sadness, the frustration, it all came, rolling out.
Many in Pueblo are not giving up on finding clues that could help find Kelsey Schelling.
The relentlessness of this mother's search really struck a chord with so many people in Pueblo. Scores of locals turned out to help Laura search all around the Pueblo area for any trace of Kelsey.
Over here on this other hike in 2 more groups.
The ride home is always really tough, going home empty-handed, emotionally and physically.
Is it hard to keep hope?
As far as the hope of actually finding her, that dwindles, every day.
But then, in October of 2015, nearly 2 years after Kelsey's disappearance, there's a shocking development. A mysterious message giving Laura hope comes through the Help Find Kelsey Facebook page. That's the page that Laura had set up to gather tips and leads on the case.
It was saying, if I have information about Kelsey, can I remain anonymous?
When Laura responds, a man emails her saying, "Ma'am, please, your daughter is not dead. She will be back home alive." The man offers a harrowing account of what really happened to Kelsey. He claims that Dante hired a friend to kill her and says Dante has no idea she is alive. He thinks she is dead.
And that the friend did not kill her. He sold her into sex trafficking. It made me sick. I mean, I could barely function. What if she is still out there somewhere?
The emailer says he needs money to help Kelsey escape. $50,000 in cash. So the plan is this. The money is to be brought to Vancouver, Washington, specifically to a local McDonald's restaurant. Then it's to be hand-delivered to a guy named Marcus, who would be wearing a red hat.
Once the money was exchanged, then this courier person would go and get Kelsey and bring her back to the McDonald's. I'll have to sell some stocks, which will take about a week, but I can push to expedite that process. I just thought, what if she's been out there and I could have found her and we haven't? I mean, it was just what if?
Laura sets up the meeting at the McDonald's in Vancouver to deliver the cash. But even though she's desperate for answers, she's worried that something criminal is going on. So she reaches out to the Vancouver police and asks them to go undercover to meet this courier.
It felt like law enforcement from Vancouver should have been involved in the situation.
But just before the appointed time, the Vancouver police back out, believing it to be an internet scam and not an actual human trafficking plot. But 2020 had the McDonald's under surveillance to see if anyone would show up. Our cameras are rolling as a man with a red hat comes in.
That's him.
He sits quietly. But after no one shows up, he takes off.
Okay, he's on the move. Cut the engine.
Weird, eerie to see that they actually were, going through with this.
He's gone.
It was just all a matter of trying to get down to the truth of this.
As I was investigating this mysterious email, a contact of mine told me about another missing woman's case that proved to be the key to unraveling this mystery. In Portsmouth, Ohio, 1,200 miles away from Colorado, Megan Lancaster, 25 years old, has also suddenly disappeared.
Katie Lancaster is on a mission to help find her sister-in-law.
I mean, she's gone without a trace. We have her car and her wallet.
An eerie feeling like there's something, like we're gonna find something.
Months go by with no developments. Megan's family organizes searches and sets up a Facebook page to publicize the case.
And then, out of nowhere, he pops up.
A startling message comes through the family's Facebook page about Megan.
He says, I know where Megan is, and I can get her back.
Just like with Kelsey's family, the emailer says he can help Megan escape, but he needs money, $50,000. He directs them to bring $25,000 in cash up front to Vancouver, Washington, specifically to that same McDonald's, and deliver it to a man named Marcus, wearing, no surprise, a red hat.
What if he really does have her, and I can bring her home?
You should stick with the crew, behind the camera, with the crew.
To unravel just what's going on with this mystery, Katie agreed to work with 2020 to set up a sting operation.
Katie and I are going to be in one vehicle.
Just like Laura did 2 weeks earlier, she arranges a meeting to drop off the money in Vancouver at that McDonald's.
There are booths over here.
Katie, you said this morning that they sent you a text message.
They will be sending Marcus.
Okay, they're both rolling now.
I would be going to this rendezvous with Katie, but wearing a hidden camera. As we walk into the McDonald's at the appointed meet time, we quickly spot Marcus, the man in the red hat, and walk over to him. Katie was instructed not to ask any questions, so I told Marcus, hey, the money is in the trunk of a car parked outside.
Right when they're at the trunk, get ready. We're about 10 seconds away.
Meanwhile, I was waiting outside with our camera team and a security guard in case this thing went sideways.
Okay, let's get ready.
As they head out to the parking lot, before the trunk is opened, I walk over to Marcus. I want to get some answers.
Marcus Ryan Smith, ABC News. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Why'd you come here to take $25,000 from Katie?
I don't know.
You don't know why you're here to take $25,000 from Katie?
Nope.
What are you here for?
Oh, because to collect some money.
You see, Marcus claims he was suckered too, lured online into a supposed jewelry venture. He says he was supposed to pick up the money and then wire it to someone he's never met.
So a random guy tells you to go to McDonald's twice in less than 2 weeks to meet people to pick up money, and you don't think anything of it?
I didn't think none of it.
We were told that you were going to deliver Megan to Katie today. Is that true?
I have no idea about no Megan or no kidnapping or anything like that.
This would be a scheme to extort money from families who have family members that are missing.
I didn't know nothing of this.
I had no clue
Anybody was supposed to be exchanging nothing for a human being. If I did know, I would not have been involved in this situation.
So you've been here twice, coming to pick up money at a McDonald's. Your name is attached to this.
Just feel shaky inside.
I had no clue.
It's important that you be real honest with me.
Yeah, I'm real honest.
You have never heard of Kelsey Schelling?
Never.
Definitely a big scam. I want to know who's behind it.
But an FBI analysis of the emailer's Facebook page showed it used an IP address traced all the way to Russia.
In most scams, they're compartmentalized. So the person you may send to pick up the cash at a particular location may know nothing about what the scam is.
Then that's just 100% clarification that, this is just some dirtbags out there, trying to get money off of these poor families.
But while the extortion plot that was torturing Laura was laid to rest, the roller coaster ride wasn't over. A sympathetic stranger who feels for Laura comes up with a shocking plan to go undercover on her own and befriend Dante to try to find the truth about what happened to Kelsey.
I knew that I was potentially putting myself into danger.
Dante Lucas?
And when we go to get some answers from Dante, she was right there with him.
What do you have to say to her family?
Even though Laura Saxton lives hundreds of miles away from Pueblo, Colorado, the news about her years-long crusade to find her missing daughter continued to resonate with folks living there.
Our top story tonight, the search for Kelsey Schelling. Today, law enforcement following new leads in the case.
We're going to keep coming up with ideas. I mean, we're trying everything.
I felt really heartbroken for her. As a mom, I couldn't even begin to fathom knowing that your child's out there.
It's spring of 2016 when Lauren Shore, a single mom living near Pueblo, says Laura's story inspired her to hatch an audacious plan of her own. Make Facebook friends with Dante Lucas, gain his trust, and meet up with him in real life, and just maybe help solve the mystery of what happened to Kelsey.
Definitely was nerve-wracking, but I felt like I could do it. So I had messaged him on Facebook, and I told him that I was looking to meet new friends. He responded fairly quickly, within, I say, a couple of hours.
Lauren was eventually able to get Dante to meet her in person. When we shot this footage of Dante playing basketball in 2016, Lauren was there with him. She says it was only the second time they'd ever met.
We had went to a basketball court to just play around, shoot some hoops, and that's when a man with a camera came up to us.
Dante Lucas, I'm with ABC News 2020. The family of Kelsey says you're responsible for her disappearance. Is that true?
Who's Kelsey? I freaked out. I had to play the role that I didn't know what was happening, so I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what is happening?
What is happening right now?
And he kind of just shut down and was like, I'll tell you about it later on. Don't freak out. It's okay. None of this is true.
As the weeks go by, Lauren says she's able to develop a close relationship with Dante.
We just hang around the family, watch movies, drink a little bit. He always smelt of alcohol. He comes off as very cocky, I feel like. He feels like he's just the man, and he can't do no wrong.
Just as she'd planned, Lauren says she got Dante to open up, to trust her enough. The time finally seemed right to ask him about Kelsey.
There was only a certain amount of period of time that he would talk about it. 1 minute, he had no involvement, he had nothing to do with it, and then he would just shut down and start crying hysterically and get really upset.
But Lauren says something very unexpected happened with Dante. Her undercover relationship with him blossomed into romance.
I felt like he did genuinely develop feelings for me and did genuinely fall in love with me. He has this way about him that makes you just feel so sorry for him. In the back of my mind, I always kept that he is potentially a murderer.
Lauren says her relationship with Dante continued for about a year, but then something happened. There was an incident outside his house that made her realize she was in way over her head.
He's like, I want you to marry me. And he showed me the ring. I took the ring. At that point, I was kind of like done because I didn't want to get in any deeper than I had already gotten into.
Despite all the efforts of this clandestine girlfriend, her work doesn't seem to be paying off, and the clock just keeps ticking for Laura Saxton. She's not any closer to knowing the truth about what happened to Kelsey.
I wasn't happy at all with how things were going, and I mean, that's one big reason why I wanted to do the first story with you guys. Was I was hoping that that would somehow bring something out into the light.
Tonight on 2020, when do you stop looking for a pregnant daughter who's vanished?
In May of 2016, our first 2020 program on the Kelsey Schelling case hits the airwaves. The very day of our broadcast, there's a big announcement regarding the investigation into Kelsey's disappearance. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation was going to join the case.
That was news to me, so I was kind of like, oh my God, this is awesome.
I think once that 2020 special aired, it really turned up the heat on Pueblo police and on this case.
Taking over the case, Pueblo Police Department Commander Eric Bravo and CBI agent Kevin Torres. Working together, they move fast, turning it from a missing persons case into a full-blown criminal investigation.
It was a homicide investigation in our eyes, so I immediately started working on setting a plan into motion how we wanted to proceed.
Police got a tip that led them to believe Schelling's body might be in Dante's backyard.
It's not long before police dig up the yard of the house where Dante and his family had been staying.
So we thought, man, you know, we really have something. But it went from elation to satisfaction. You know, that day it just seemed like we were there, and then it slipped away.
During the investigation, Agent Torres finds out about Dante's relationship with Lawrence Shore. When he interviews Shore, she reveals that Dante had made a key admission to her about Kelsey's disappearance. And it's about that Walmart surveillance video of the mystery man walking over to her car and then driving off with it.
She confirmed for us Dante admitting it was him in the Walmart surveillance video. She also informed us that Dante admitted to her dropping Kelsey's car off at St. Mary Corwin Hospital. The piece of information that Lauren provided to us was a pretty crucial piece at that point.
Then, in late 2017, there's a huge development that will totally transform the case. A Pueblo man tells police that Dante and other family members had attacked him in front of their home and stolen $1,000 from him. Now that gives police a reason to arrest Dante.
I had information that Dante was leaving Pueblo and was heading to DIA, where he seemingly intended to board a flight to Tucson. And the concern was that he may take other efforts to meet friends in Mexico.
Boy, the anxiety level was high, the tension was high.
The time was ticking away, and the tires were turning on the road. And Dante was within 20 minutes of getting on a plane for Tucson, Arizona, when he was arrested.
When he was arrested, there was hope across the community that maybe investigators would finally get some answers in this case.
We decided that the next day would be the day that we would send a couple detectives back in to try and answer some of the questions that we didn't have answered.
During his interrogation, Dante finally breaks down and comes clean, confirming Lawrence Shore's account that he was the one seen in that Walmart video.
So that information that he confirmed that that was him was huge.
You see, it was that admission, combined with the wealth of evidence from text messages, cell phone records, and surveillance video already gathered, all of that was enough for prosecutors to move forward.
At the end of the day, I said, I think we have enough here to go forward. I ethically believe that Dante Lucas killed Kelsey Schelling, and I think we have the evidence to prove it.
A major development, the ex-boyfriend of a pregnant Denver woman who went missing 4 years ago.
He now faces charges of first-degree murder.
How were you thinking as his trial approached? Are you thinking justice will be done?
I put a lot of things on hold because I just was, sure it was going to happen and, wanted to be ready to go.
So after 8 years, Dante Lucas is finally in court, and the prosecution has a surprise witness.
That just took the whole room's breath away. No one saw that coming. This story became such a big deal here in Pueblo because people want answers and they haven't gotten any for 8 years.
Dante Lucas, the Pueblo man accused of murdering his pregnant ex-girlfriend Kelsey Schelling nearly 8 years ago, is headed to trial tomorrow.
Did I think it was going to be a tough case? Absolutely. And we well may not win it. But I owe it to the family. I think I owe it to Kelsey to go forward and try this case.
KRDO News Channel 13's Dan Beatty has been following this case and the trial for more than 2 years.
I was anticipating there to just be a mad rush of reporters who were going to try to get into the courtroom. I was very worried that I might not even get a seat. You could feel the anticipation. When I saw Laura Saxton walk into the judicial building, you could tell this was a day she's been waiting for a long time.
Denver 7's Liz Gilardi in Pueblo today for opening statements. Liz, you have been with this case every step of the way now for all these years.
The prosecution simply started out and they said, this is not a missing persons case. This is a homicide case.
The case that the prosecution was making right off the jump was, one, they were going to prove through text messages and surveillance video that Dante Lucas has to be the one responsible for Kelsey Schelling's death.
These were two people in a relationship. Kelsey Schelling became pregnant. Dante Lucas didn't want to have a baby. And he made sure that didn't happen.
I know that she had mentioned Kelsey Schelling's Chevy Cruze.
The prosecution said this car tells a story, and they told the jurors that you will see Dante Lucas moving this car around Pueblo in the days after she went missing.
The idea that someone can essentially disappear without a trace, I think, is kind of a counterintuitive thought for people to have.
Prosecutors think there's enough evidence to convict Lucas even without a body, but the defense disagrees.
In the opening statements, the defense said this is a missing persons case. This has always been a missing persons case. They said there's no body, there's no evidence. Why should you believe that Dante Lucas killed her?
They do not have a crime scene. They do not have a murder weapon.
Today, the jury got a detailed look at some of the text messages exchanged between them.
For the prosecutors, their goal was to show that those text messages showed intent, showed that Dante Lucas consistently lied, not only to investigators, but to Laura Saxton herself.
What they refer to as his luring of Kelsey Schelling to Pueblo.
The prosecution say that he lured her there to end her life.
We know that that's his phone. He admitted to those text messages. We know that that's his thoughts and feelings about it. That's direct evidence.
And the movements of their phones as well, as they were pinging off cell phone towers in Pueblo on the night of February 4th and the early morning hours of February 5th. I think that a lot of the case really centered around those movements.
Two pivotal witnesses testified in the high-profile Pueblo murder case against Dante Lucas.
First witness was Laura Saxton, and we were not expecting Laura Saxton to be the first one to take the stand. She didn't break down, but you can tell she's hurting. There's a lot of pain behind her voice.
I think that was really powerful for the jury to see. Her mom spoke to the fact that she absolutely wanted this baby.
Prosecutors today painted Kelsey Schelling as an excited mother-to-be, desperate to make it work with her boyfriend.
It didn't take long for the prosecutors to swing for the fences, calling some pretty shocking witnesses to the stand.
Ryan Rivera is a former Pueblo County inmate who considered himself to be a friend of Dante Lucas.
And when he took the stand, he said that Dante Lucas told him that they're never going to find Kelsey Schelling's body. That just took the whole room's breath away.
Ryan Rivera, he was the only person who came forward over the duration of this trial that really said, Dante told me he did this.
I wasn't in the courtroom, but well, jailhouse snitch on its face is just not credible. I mean, that's the assumption that we believe jurors have, and it's the assumption we have as defense lawyers. Why would this person do it? What's the benefit? What's the motive?
There was no deals made about charges he would get to plead to, time he would get to serve. There was no deals like that.
There were a lot of names on the prosecutor's list that I was shocked by. but Sarah Lucas certainly topped that list.
When you saw that Sarah Lucas was on the prosecution side, everyone wondered, what is she going to say?
The one important thing that I've kind of mentioned, she confirmed that Dante was the last person left alone with Kelsey.
The prosecution painted a picture of a troubled relationship.
Some of Kelsey's close friends testified. They pointed toward elements of domestic abuse in Kelsey and Dante's relationship.
Something worth pointing out was the prosecution and even the defense made it clear that Dante was using Kelsey for a number of things. For her money, Dante used Kelsey for her apartment in Denver, and Dante used Kelsey for her car. And his argument was, she lets me do it. The defense pushed the narrative that Kelsey Schelling popped pills, was an addict, that Kelsey, when she left Dante Lucas at the Southside Walmart here in Pueblo, that she was going to meet up with a drug dealer.
There's no single person, other than the defendant in 2017, who's saying that she was into drugs and that she was a party girl.
You didn't have the forensic evidence. It seemed like you were really relying on circumstantial evidence and the evidence of snitches and these other witnesses. That's pretty straightforward. Either you believe them or you don't.
The witness list yields more surprises. The ones who make it to court.
I know that my testimony could potentially help take him down.
And the ones who didn't.
Witness 31-year-old Roxanne Martinez was found shot to death.
That was a completely unforeseen development in this case.
Breaking on Denver 7, a key witness in the Kelsey Schelling murder trial found dead.
That witness, 31-year-old Roxanne Martinez, was found shot to death in Denver last week.
These are still very stunning developments.
Roxanne Martinez, a witness for the prosecution, was set to testify soon.
That was just an absolutely, completely unforeseen development in this case. People were reeling when that news broke.
Denver police officers were called to a residential area in southeast Denver on a report of an unresponsive female who was lying in the roadway. We determined that that individual had been shot one time and died from that injury.
Her dad is in shock, her mom, her stepmom. It's just tragic all the way around.
I think when a witness in any major case turns up dead directly before they're set to testify, I think, of course, people are going to think, was she killed because she was going to testify?
Denver police arrested a suspect in Martinez's killing, 29-year-old Emmanuel Chandler. Chandler has been charged with first-degree murder, but he hasn't entered a plea yet.
We don't have any connection between Mr. Chandler and Mr. Lucas or anybody associated with that trial.
Our concern was to make sure that people understood that while she was an endorsed witness, I couldn't comment on her testimony.
Nobody knows what Roxanne Martinez was going to say on the stand for sure, with the exception of maybe the investigators who talked to her.
But while prosecutors say they can't discuss what Roxanne Martinez would have said on the stand, 2020 has uncovered some revealing details about her. You see, back in March of 2016, a woman named Roxanne had reached out to Laura Saxton through that Help Find Kelsey Facebook page. Roxanne messaged that she used to date the guy Kelsey was pregnant with, and he told me what had happened and started crying.
I'm instantly like mixed emotions, like, okay, are you going for the reward or, you know, are you for real?
When Laura asked, do you know where Kelsey is located? Roxanne replied, he told me everything. Yes, I do.
Basically, her information sounded very good and very promising, and so we really wanted to meet with her.
This mysterious woman agreed to meet Laura and her husband at a Mexican restaurant in Denver.
We were actually on our way there, and I tried to reach her by phone to let her know we were coming. She said that she was in the hospital and couldn't meet us. That was kind of the extent of what I really remember. And then, you know, past that, then, you know, that was all turned over to law enforcement to look into further.
Authorities say that woman was the same Roxanne who was killed during the trial.
I can confirm that CBI followed up and interviewed her. that we did have her as an endorsed witness that we wanted to testify during trial. The thing that I'm steering clear from is I just don't want to talk about evidence that wasn't actually admitted during trial.
Martinez's killing shakes up the trial and threatens to overshadow the testimony of another prosecution witness who had a remarkable story to tell. It's none other than Lauren Shore, that woman who befriended Dante as part of a plan to try to find out what happened to Kelsey.
I know that my testimony could potentially help take him down, and that was realistically why I wanted to testify.
Shore testifies about Dante's critical admission to her, that he was the mysterious figure seen picking up Kelsey's car after it sat overnight in a Walmart parking lot.
I said, so that must have meant that you had dropped the car off at the hospital, correct? And that's when he said, yes, that was him that dropped the car off.
When the defense cross-examined Shore, they attack her credibility and her motives, at one point characterizing her as a sex informant because she had a physical relationship with Dante.
It's fair game, and if you're going to put yourself out there like she did and sleep with someone, the jury ought to know about that. You're having intimate conversations, and that cast a lot of suspicion on her as a witness.
The sex informant part really bothered me because I wasn't having sex with Dante to get answers out of him. I was playing my part and role as girlfriend. So to me, to be called such was really degrading.
On the very last day of its case, the prosecution played an interrogation video of Dante confirming Shore's account.
The clip that I played at the beginning of my closing was his phrase to detectives, "I lied from the jump. I moved the car." I wanted the jury to hear the defendant in his own words say, "I lied."
When it's the defense's turn to present its case, they raise a lot of eyebrows in court.
The defense didn't call a single witness to the stand. The defense immediately rested their case. And it was just another moment where your jaw hit the floor.
The burden of proof is on the government. It's simply messaging in a very strong way to the jury, they haven't done it. It's not guilty. So it's a strong message.
There was just really not a lot of hard forensic evidence to go off of. So as far as, what evidence they put forth to court that was irrefutable, that Dante Lucas killed Kelsey Schelling, I never saw that.
After a shocking final day of the trial, the jury was going to deliberate, and I had no idea what was going to happen at that point.
I think everybody was just like holding their breath.
Prosecution and defense have given closing arguments. The jury is now deliberating.
Well, on that last day of the trial, no one expected to get a verdict that day.
So now the waiting begins.
Yes. And I was prepared to camp out at the courthouse as long as I had to. I really thought I would be there all week, and we're really totally unprepared for when they came and told us the verdict was in. I think we all were just like, oh my God.
I mean, it was shocking how quickly they arrived at their decision, especially given just the amount of information they had to look at.
I can tell you, because the decision came back so early, all of our experience as prosecutors is that this was probably an acquittal, because juries tend to come to decisions more quickly on acquittals than convictions.
It was like standing on the precipice of a cliff and looking down. It was scary.
It was a very tense atmosphere in the courthouse while everyone was waiting to hear what the verdict was.
Even I was nervous, and I'm not affiliated with Kelsey Schelling's family at all.
People were wondering, does that mean Dante Lucas is going to walk?
I think everybody was just like holding their breath almost.
And then, when you hear the verdict, tell me how you're feeling.
Well, the words came out way too slow. Like, I feel like the judge was talking in slow-mo, even though he wasn't. I mean, I was just like, every word, it's like, okay, spit it out, please. And then he finally got to, guilty of first degree, and I think that was the first breath like I had taken in a long time.
This is a guilty verdict, 8 years in the
bad situation that didn't have to end up like this if he had just let her come home.
You mentioned it was a lot of emotions for both sides. Did you find yourself looking over at their side?
Dante was sitting right in front of me. I looked at the back of his head through the whole trial. But, you know, the mother of his child was there, and she broke down, and honestly, my heart hurt for her, hurt for their child, because it didn't have to end up this way.
Ryan Rivera's testimony was the biggest bombshell for our trial. It had moved us all. I could hear the gasps even in the masks of fellow jurors.
When it came out that he was convicted, I think there was a great feeling of satisfaction and relief, not elation. You know, you have to look at it from this side too. Mr. Lucas is a young man, and he was convicted of a criminal crime that shapes his life for however long he lives. I think it's every parent's worst nightmare that a child goes before you, and you can never fully heal that wound. I can tell you, I almost lost a child in the early 80s. And so I had a lot of sympathy with Laura and her family because I came that close to that tragedy. And that child was the lead prosecutor on this case.
So the elected DA is my dad, and Kyle McCarthy, who was obviously on the case with me, is my husband. And we, I don't think, had a night in the last 4 years that we haven't gone home and talked about Kelsey Schelling. Sometimes it's the first thing we talk about when we wake up. Sometimes it's the last thing we talk about before we go to sleep.
On Saturdays when we're driving kids around to soccer, a lot of times we're being told to stop talking about it because they can hear us in the front seat talking about it.
We both also had, and I mean, an incredible emotional pull to the family. That is a very special relationship, one that I will value for the rest of my life.
Well, I think, I mean, Michelle and Kyle with their closing, they're amazing. I don't even know what other words to use.
The first things that she told the reporters outside of the courthouse after the guilty verdict, yes, she was happy, but she was still devastated.
So we're very, very thankful for this outcome. But in the end, I didn't get Kelsey back. And that's what I wanted more than anything. So I feel like I didn't do something, I didn't push hard enough on something, or I didn't look enough on something to bring her home.
That devastation isn't going anywhere. Like she said, she has to live with that forever.
Her goal throughout all of this was to bring Kelsey home, give her a proper burial. So I know when she had expressed that in some ways she felt like she had failed in her main mission.
I think the investigative team has some ideas where she may rest.
If that's where she is, that's just like the worst possibility to me.
That very first day that we met in September of 2016. I'll never forget it like it was yesterday, and it was just a special bond that we formed.
Kelsey's mom just battled and battled and battled.
8 years, I was hoping that it would never take this long. I grabbed my mother very tight and held her very close. I was holding on to my dad's hands.
Since the trial's over, it's because And Kelsey still hasn't been found, so but yeah, I've just felt very empty this past week.
Doesn't feel final because we still don't know where Kelsey is, and we still don't know exactly what happened.
It turns out that prosecutors did present troubling evidence from the night Kelsey disappeared. That evidence provided a possible explanation to where her body could be.
We received information from the Pueblo landfill that there was some video evidence of a vehicle being there. You couldn't see what kind of vehicle. You couldn't tell who was in the car. Their lock to their front gate into the dump had been tampered with.
Well, it caught my attention when I grabbed the lock on my hand, and I said, well, somebody tried to get in here overnight.
The cell phone records, the pings were all out in that area. So, we suspected that's what happened.
If you heard the testimony of the landfill expert, it would be next to impossible to just find a body just by conducting a search of the landfill.
Who wants that for their child to be the final resting place? No one.
We want to bring her justice and bring her home with us. Her and Kadri both. Kadri, that was the name that she was going to give the child.
I'm never going to recover without getting her back. And so I still have nowhere to go to take her flowers, to go sit and talk with her, take her balloons on her birthday, go to see her on the holidays.
Hi, Cal. Hi, Cocoa Bean.
How do you want her to be remembered?
A little girl with a really big heart, a really big smile, a really big laugh, beautiful eyes, silly. She was so silly. I miss being silly with her. I miss all the things that we didn't get to do together.
Dead? The patterns of women being killed didn't really add up.
Brandy Henderson and 9 others.
These 10 murders.
The murder count possibly totaling 13.
Why didn't police see it sooner?
All victims of an unknown suspect.
Whoever did this was a ghost.
Danger disguised as a friend, and his victims never saw him coming.
One, why did it take so long to see a pattern?
We feel bad that we did not know that sooner.
But it wasn't just police. It was those of us in the media and I think the community.
Man, it was right there. This young mother was killed in the same manner. All had been strangled.
He looked at me and he said, "We think we have a serial killer."
If you don't get him off the streets fast, he could do it again.
I was not going to stop until I found out who did this.
If we'd only had the little pieces, had we only known what we know now.
She was one of his victims too.
So this was Shauna's first prom. Oh man. I remember the day she found the dress. Purple was her favorite color.
Shauna Hawk was a very beautiful young woman. She went to Central Piedmont Community College.
All I can tell you about Shauna is that incredible human being.
Raised by her mother, single mom at the time. She was industrious, ambitious, worked. She wanted to make something out of herself. She was the apple of her mother's eye.
Shauna was born on December 2nd, and I was all of 18 years old. I remember when Shauna was crying, and the minute they laid her on my chest, our eyes locked, and she just calmed right down.
She was younger than me, but, bossy. That's the right word for Shauna. She was bossy. Every time.
She's worried about the long hours and whether she's going to be able to keep up with her schoolwork. She actually talks with the Taco Bell manager, a guy named Henry Wallace.
I went and met him once, and he said, "Nice to meet you, Miss Sumter. I've hired your daughter, and I think she's going to be great on our team."
That year, February the 19th, was on a Friday.
Dee Sumter refers to that day as Horrible Friday. But it started out as just any other day at their home on Elon Street.
She said, "Well, I'm gone. I love you." And I said, "I love you more." And then she stuck her head back in the door and she said, "Mom, I love you." And I said, "Baby, I love you more." And then she took off.
That afternoon, Dee gets a call at work.
Her godson's mother called and said, "Miss Dee, have you heard from Shauna?" And I said, "No." She said, "Miss Dee, I'm not trying to say anything, but something's wrong. I don't know what, but something's not right."
She noticed some unusual things around the house when she came home. Her daughter's car was not there. That wasn't unusual, but what was unusual is it was a cold day in February, and Shauna's purse was in the house and her winter coat was in the house.
She's wondering, well, what's going on? Where is she?
I called her boyfriend and I said, Daryl, get over to my house, please, now. And he's just shaking his head. He said, this is baffling. I said, more than baffling. Something is definitely wrong.
And they decided to call the police and report her as missing. As they were waiting for the police to respond, Daryl decided to go looking through the house and just check.
I hear his footsteps. He walks into the bathroom.
He pulled back the shower curtain and found Shauna in the bathtub in a small amount of water, fully clothed, and she was dead.
The next sound I heard was him blood-curdling scream. He runs back down the hall. Miss D, dial 911. She's in the bathtub. Last thing I remember is seeing them push her out on a gurney doing CPR.
It was obviously too late at that point.
Subsequently, we find out that she was raped and then strangled inside of her bathtub.
And that was kind of unusual for us at the time. We did not have a lot of strangulations during that time with the homicide investigations.
Strangulation is rare. It's more commonly seen in domestic cases or cases where people have a relationship.
Murder? I couldn't hardly even spell the word murder before Shauna was murdered.
We didn't have any damage to the doors. We didn't have any damage to the windows. So we believe that she allowed the assailant to come inside the residence. The killer was also meticulous in terms of going through the house, making sure he wiped down anything that he may have touched. So they had no DNA, they had no fingerprints. In effect, whoever did this was a ghost.
Who would want to kill this beautiful, innocent, sweet, kind, loving person? My best friend, my daughter.
We didn't find anything significant that would draw us to point to any particular suspect at the time.
She couldn't have had an enemy. She wasn't that kind of person.
So after she was found murdered at her home, the police tried to locate her car. It was not discovered for weeks, and when it was discovered, it was found in a parking lot at Central Piedmont Community College.
The front seat was pushed back, and Shauna was short. So I think the only thing they took away from that is that it had to be somebody that was taller than Shauna.
In the course of their investigation, police actually are missing something rather important. 8 months earlier, a young woman by the name of Caroline Love disappeared. And it turns out that Caroline and Shauna were friends.
Something ain't right. They need to go back and look at what happened to Caroline, because Caroline's missing and now here Shauna is dead.
What's coming is a incredibly rude awakening.
There's some decomposition on the body.
For the Charlotte Police Department.
What soon followed was a wave of death and grief unlike anything this town has ever seen.
The best way to describe Charlotte in the early 90s would be is that it was growing extremely fast.
Charlotte was at the beginning of its banking boom.
Johnson from 20.
After the Charlotte Hornets got here, I think that's when everyone started using the term world-class city. The skyline seemed like it changed every 3 to 4 months.
Charlotte was booming. A lot of steel and glass and a lot of looking upward. Maybe not enough looking down.
Police are pointing out the drug dealers.
And what was happening on the ground.
Drugs are a problem in every large city in America.
In the neighborhoods and in communities.
Police say that this is what they call a crack house.
We were headed towards one of our highest
murder rates in the city's history.
On the legitimate side, banking was the growth industry. On the criminal side, drugs was the growth industry.
Gun was found behind the dresser along with the crack bag.
It was a very, very violent period of time.
Drugs and their debris were...
In fact, I would say it was the most violent period in Charlotte's history.
Members of the violent Mustang gang were arrested.
In the 90s, we were not equipped to handle the murder rate. We had maybe 8 homicide detectives, but only 6 were actively working.
It was almost like they were having to work homicides like car accidents.
It's the 90s in Charlotte, North Carolina. Skyscrapers are going up, but at the same time, a series of crimes are unfolding. 20-year-old Shauna Hawk is found strangled in her bathtub, and her friend and co-worker, Caroline Love, has vanished.
Caroline Love went missing in June of 1992.
Caroline lived in East Charlotte. I lived in West Charlotte, and we all worked together at Bojangles.
The Love sisters, Kathy and Caroline, worked at Bojangles with Henry Wallace, who was Shauna Hawk's boss at Taco Bell.
She was a really fun person. She always had like a really cute boyfriend.
She didn't show up for work.
This don't sound like her, you know? Something's definitely wrong.
I know my mom, I remember her calling like everybody. She called everybody in our family, like, have you seen her? Is she over here?
It was like she just disappeared off the face of the earth.
She was living with this young lady by the name of Sadie McKnight. Sadie McKnight and her boyfriend, Henry Wallace, helped file the report for the missing person of Carolina Love.
Kathy, Henry, and Sadie are the ones who went to the police station to file the police report.
Shauna had the news on and she said, Mommy, Caroline is missing. Something is wrong. It's not like her just not to come to work and not call me or call work or say something.
When Shauna Hawk is murdered, police don't immediately tie that to the disappearance of Caroline Love, but there is a connection.
Before Taco Bell, Shauna had worked at Bojangles with Caroline.
She and Shauna were close friends. They were in high school together. They worked together. They were buddies. They hung out together.
My mom was on it. She was like, there's no way that within a year that Carol's missing, and then now one of her good friends is dead.
They always remained hopeful that she would be found alive and okay.
I thought so many times that she was gonna come back. So I remember even when searching for her, I had these 2 little dresses, and I wore them because I wanted to look nice, you know. I wanted to look nice in case she showed up.
4 months after Shauna Hawk was murdered, another young lady, Audrey Spain, turns up murdered as well.
I think this is one of my favorites.
Audrey was a free spirit. She lived life on her terms.
Spirited, adventurous, positive, a hard worker.
Audrey Spain was another young, attractive black female who also worked at Taco Bell.
I do remember receiving a call from Audrey's manager telling me that she had missed going to work that particular day and that he was concerned.
So they actually sent the manager or the maintenance people to her apartment complex, and when they entered the apartment complex, entered her apartment, they found her deceased on the bed.
I don't know how much information they actually gave us at that time. I just remembered that she had been murdered, she had been strangled, there was a rape also.
It was devastating. It's just not something that you ever expect to have to deal with. Audrey was my younger sister, and we grew up together, so it was very difficult.
What did I miss? How did this happen? And you're totally blindsided. Yeah, totally.
The interesting thing about that crime scene was that the thermostat it was the summer months, had been turned way down.
The crime scene techs, when they got there, were shivering.
That's because the air conditioning had been cranked to slow down the decomposition process.
Apparently, her body had been there for at least 2 days.
In the first 6 months of 1993, Shauna Hawk and Audrey Spain have been strangled to death.
Before Shauna was murdered, a friend of hers, Caroline Love, had vanished. Even so, the detectives have no clue that these cases are connected.
I just don't feel like they knew. Maybe she was random, maybe not.
These cases never came together because there were other detectives working it and not just one. And so we had very little information to go on at the time to try to link it with any of the other homicides.
We just knew that we had another young black woman who is found murdered.
We have a possible serial killer working in the shadows. But do we know that? We have no idea.
In the months ahead, more Charlotte women will fall victim to strangulation and murder. But the killer will make a mistake, giving police a glimpse as to who he is. (1993) is the year of living dangerously in Charlotte.
Caroline Love, Shauna Hawk, Audrey Spain.
Peak murder rates, and somebody is killing young black women.
It was earlier this afternoon when a family friend found the body of the woman. It was September of '93. We were called out to a home where a woman's body had been found. When police got to this apartment off of Marvin Road, they found two very frightened children. Michelle, yeah, I was there. Vividly remember Michelle Stinson. Here's a young woman who had been murdered inside of her own home with her children present. Michelle Stinson was killed in front of her two children.
A friend drops by to visit Michelle.
He looked in the windows and saw one of her little boys playing and, was banging on the window.
Where's your mommy? Where is she? And they tell him, well, mommy's asleep on the floor.
And he was getting ready to leave when the little boy opened the door and he went in.
He finds her dead on the kitchen floor.
There were signs of strangulation, but her cause of death was 4 stab wounds.
As Michelle Stinson's bloodied body was taken away, those who knew her said goodbye with tears and tried to make sense of it all.
My goodness, what person, what monster could take the life of a mother in front of their children?
Police say that there is no sign of forced entry, and that indicates that perhaps Michelle knew her killer and invited him in. Despite that, they failed to find any viable leads or suspects.
Michelle Stinson's case, like Shauna Hawk and Audrey Spain, and the still missing Caroline Love, goes unsolved.
You can't even stay at home and be safe anymore. For some unknown reason, they just couldn't connect the dots.
Dee Sumter's a remarkable woman. Yes, her heart broke, but her will didn't.
Dee Sumter went on a public campaign to call attention to her daughter's death.
It's better knowing.
And she turned what was the worst possible situation into something extremely positive for this community when she, along with Shauna's godmother, Judy Williams, started an organization called Mothers of Murdered Offspring, which is still here.
I just knew I had a daughter who was murdered and it wasn't being investigated properly. I was appalled by that, angered by it, and I was not going to stop until I found out who did this.
They felt that the police department or the city didn't care enough because they were young black women.
Dee Sumter, whose daughter Shauna was on that list of victims, still wonders what if some of the faces were white instead.
Every time another youngster was murdered, there was Dee calling the press, going after the police, saying, "What are you going to do to help us?"
She was turning up the heat on the police.
They particularly attacked the police each and every day about what we were doing and what we were not doing, because they thought that we should be doing more, and we were telling them that we couldn't do any more than what we had. We were overworked and we were understaffed, but we were doing the best that we could.
Dear Killer, I am the mother of Shauna Denise Hawk.
She wrote a letter to the editor calling out the person who took her daughter's life.
Something in me said he's got to have some type of a heart. Might be a dark heart, but it's a heart. Please, please, please come forward and turn yourself into the authorities so justice can be served and so you can get the help you need and so forgiveness can be given. For without this, you are eternally doomed. Can I have a moment, please?
Dee Sumter's letter appears in the Charlotte Observer. And in the same day's paper, a brief article, a woman in Charlotte found dead in her apartment. Here we go again, another victim.
In the mornings when Vanessa Mack had to go to work, her babysitter would come here to her house to pick up her 4-month-old daughter. A young lady by the name of Vanessa Little Mack was murdered in her home.
I said, Vanessa, I said, get up, you know, like that. And then she didn't move and she didn't say anything. So I turned the bedroom light on. And I said, oh God.
Vanessa Mack was killed in February of 1994, almost to the day that Shauna Hawk had been killed a year earlier.
Blood was on her face and a towel was around her neck.
Her baby daughter, just yards away, was okay. Police believe the infant was in the home when her mother was killed.
Vanessa Mack was a hospital worker.
Just an honest, hardworking young lady doing the best that she can to provide for her family.
I don't know why they would have did it, because she was a good girl. She didn't bother nobody.
Vanessa Little Mack's cause of death was once again ligature strangulation.
There is a link to previous killings, but police don't seem to notice it at the time.
Vanessa Mack had a sister who worked at Taco Bell. So again, the correlation of another person working with somebody at a Taco Bell.
We started looking for financial card records and discovered that a bank card was missing from the scene.
They got her banking history and found that her teller card had been used unsuccessfully.
In her final moments, Vanessa Mack tricks her killer, giving him the wrong PIN to her ATM card.
She had made it up. It wasn't the correct password, so that's why he couldn't get into her account. She still fought back. She didn't give him everything he wanted.
There are security cameras on the ATM.
So we looked at the security camera footage and we could possibly say that it was a male of dark skin complexion.
But it wasn't a great picture. There wasn't a lot to go on.
The only thing you could see in the photograph was his ear.
And we did see an earring in the figure of a cross at that time.
A hoop cross earring. Only thing the photograph showed.
But that killer wearing a gold cross earring is about to make another mistake, revealing his identity.
Like a beast, sitting, waiting for a prey, just waiting to go and hurt someone.
It's March 1994 in the city of Charlotte, and someone has gotten away with murdering 4 women in a year's time.
My goddaughter was one of the victims. Shauna Hawk. She was one of his victims too.
Shauna Hawk found strangled in her home last February. And then 2 weeks ago, Vanessa Little Mack also strangled.
All black women in their 20s, all strangled to death in their own home.
Something's not right here, you know? Something is not right.
I mean, that's one question I want to have for the police department. Why hadn't they shown a real interest? And I really felt that we've been neglected.
All being investigated as seemingly unconnected. That is about to change in one single deadly day at the same apartment complex.
The Lake Apartments, and I would refer to them as the infamous Lake Apartments, because if there is any location in this town that's affiliated with these cases, that's the location.
The next victim is in March 9th of 94, 18-year-old Brandy Henderson, a young mom.
She was funny, she loved to joke around, she sang off key, but she thought that she could sing and we just let her do it.
Brandy lives with her boyfriend Lamar Woods and their 10-month-old son, Tyrese.
Brandy told me that when she had Tyrese, that she felt like her life was complete. She felt like she had made a masterpiece.
One night in March, Brandy calls her cousin George, asking him to come over and hang out.
She was like, well, I've got some Chinese food that I ordered and from takeout. Why don't you just come over? Come on over. You know, come see me. And I said, well, it's already 8 o'clock. I'm tired. I've been working all day. I got to get up early tomorrow. And she said, oh, come on.
They're talking on the phone. Then there's a knock on the door.
The phone call was interrupted, and she said someone was at the door.
And I heard her in the background saying, just make sure you lock the door behind you. I didn't worry about who was there because she said lock the door behind you, so she trusted him.
Late that night, Brandy's boyfriend comes home from work.
The first thing he notices that sort of catches his eye is that kind of like the lights are off, which is a little bit unusual because he knows Brandy is home.
He turns on the light. The apartment's been trashed.
His stereo is missing. The place has been robbed.
So he starts checking around and he finds his kid and notices the kid is not really breathing normally. So then he's like, what's going on here?
Someone has tied a pair of shorts around 10-month-old Tyrese's neck. This child is struggling to breathe.
He runs to help him. He unties the things around his neck and then finds Brandy.
Brandy was in the bedroom, lying on the bed, with a ligature around her neck.
You're watching as this woman's body is being carried downstairs, knowing her child has been injured, possibly gravely, and luckily he survived.
The next morning, as soon as I turned the news on,
we don't have a significant break anywhere in the case. We're still hoping that somebody may come forward with some information.
They had a stretcher rolling across the sidewalk in front of her apartment. And I knew at that time that it was real, and I just lost it because I just could not comprehend that I just talked to her and now she's dead.
The killer stole not only the stereo, but a Pringles can of coins that Brandy had been saving up.
However, this suspect got in there. Apparently he was let in or had access to get in on his own.
Contact 60130 on tag 2. Right at this moment, detectives get an urgent radio call. They're needed back at the Lake Apartments.
Another woman is found strangled.
I could not believe that the next day we're back at the same apartment complex where another woman is found dead in her apartment. And this woman is Betty Jean Baucom. She's 24 years old. She has a 3-year-old daughter.
Betty Baucom, who lived somewhere in those same apartments, worked at Bojangles.
Betty never did anything wrong to anybody. She always tried to help people, and I mean, it just really hit us hard here.
The stuff hit the fan. It was crazy town, man. Everybody was over there. It seemed like there was 10,000 police cops over there.
I was interviewing people who were racing into the apartment complex.
We came here to make sure that my girlfriend was safe because her husband is at work and her daughter is home alone.
Did this concern you when you heard this?
Yes, it did. I mean, it's unbelievable.
The fear that it stoked was just insane.
I grew up in New York, and I thought this was going to be like, you know, a safe haven out here. And apparently there is no safe haven anymore.
So now we have a major problem. Now we have two young ladies in the same apartment complex have been found murdered, and there's a lot of conversation.
I was in court and saw one of the homicide detectives, and I asked him, you know, what's going on? And that was the first I heard. He looked at me and he said, "We think we have a serial killer."
Police worry this could be a serial strangler.
Betty Jean Balcom's car has been stolen.
We're looking for a vehicle now of the latest victim, and we believe the suspect has probably fled with it.
So during this time, you know, we have an APB out for Betty Balcom's car, and we're looking citywide for the car.
Police found the car in this parking lot. Actually, it's right across the street from the apartment complex where the women were found murdered.
On the floor of Betty's car is a Pringles can stolen from Brandy Henderson.
So that connects the two murders at the Lake Apartments. Whoever killed Betty and stole her car must have also killed Brandy and stolen her coins.
Tonight, police aren't taking any chances at all. They're setting up perimeters all around the Lake Apartments.
Investigators say they need more information quickly.
You know, if you don't get him off the streets fast, he could do it again.
Use caution, be careful, and think before you open the door.
The killer is out there somewhere, and they feel certain if given the chance, he could strike again.
Word tonight of a serial killer in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's the shock of recognition that comes when a community realizes there's been a killer in its midst.
So now we have a major problem. Now we have two young ladies in the same apartment complex have been found murdered. The media has now been involved.
Be careful letting them into your house. If there's some doubt at all, you feel nervous with the person that may be coming to your door, don't hesitate, call 911.
Everybody's in uproar, everybody in a panic.
The city was on edge, you know, just fear all over the whole city.
It was scary. It was scary. I can remember calling some friends that I know on that side of town and say, hey, be careful.
Investigators say they need more information quickly. Young women were murdered in the same apartment complex, and their killer is still out there somewhere.
Minutes before Brandy Henderson was murdered at the Lake Apartments, she had been on the phone with her cousin George Burrell.
She said, hold on, somebody's at the door. And I heard her in the background saying, just make sure you lock the door behind you.
The day after the murder, George says he stops over at a neighbor's apartment.
As I walked in, to my left sat Henry Wallace, watching the TV. I had seen Henry Wallace at Brandy and her boyfriend's house. I had met him one time.
By daylight, detectives were back at the Lake Apartments with another murder on their hands.
The news came on. So we started watching the news, and it was about Brandy's murder.
Investigators say whoever killed these women was cold-bloodedly calm, spending a lot of time in each of their apartments.
I felt this on my shoulder. I felt a pat, like, you know, I'm so sorry. And he was looking at the TV, watching Gurney go across the sidewalk with her body, and his eyes just glow. He was just glowing, like, just, you know, like amazed, like he was excited. And I could just see that in his eyes, like he was just fixed on the TV.
Brandy Henderson's 10-month-old baby was also attacked and left for dead.
And He's like, I'm so sorry. What happened to your cousin? And Henry said, she was always there with her baby by herself. When somebody come in, she would say, lock the door behind them. I had that flashback to when I was speaking to her, and she said, just make sure you lock the door behind you. And I knew at that moment that it was him. I said, oh my word, he killed her.
George says he immediately told a police officer about his suspicion, but he says the officer blew him off.
By then, they knew that they had a serial killer on their hands, and they needed to find him quickly, but they didn't find him quickly enough.
As they're processing all of this with Betty Jean and Brandy Henderson being murdered at the Lakes Apartments, one more person is found murdered about a mile away, and her name is Deborah Ann Slaughter.
She loved to laugh. She had a very contagious laugh. She also had a beautiful voice. She and I both grew up singing in church together. I remember Boys II Men came on the radio singing The End of the Road. I just remember us going, to the end of the road, and I can't let go. That was the last time we sung together.
Deborah Slaughter lived in the Glen Hollow apartments, which were the same apartments that Audrey Spain lived in.
Henry Wallace had also lived at Glen Hollow at one time, and Deborah worked at the Bojangles, same place where Henry Wallace worked.
And my mother did give us warnings. Her exact words is, there's a serial killer in Charlotte, and I need y'all to be careful. And I would say to Deborah all the time, be careful. I always told her to be careful. Deborah was a tough person, and she just wasn't scared of anything.
It was this last Thursday the bodies of Brandy Henderson and Betty Jean Balcom were discovered. 2 days later, Deborah Slaughter was found just a mile away.
At some point after letting this man into her home, Deborah Slaughter comes to a horrifying realization.
Once his attack was on, Deborah Slaughter made the connection between the recent murders. At that point, she said, "You're him." So Deborah did fight because Deborah knew that she was going to die.
Deborah Slaughter's case was much more violent than any of the other victims, and you could tell that there was a big struggle inside the home. She fought for her life.
Lovey Slaughter sees it every time she closes her eyes, her daughter's body lying on the dining room floor of her apartment.
When she knocked on the door just kind of pushed open, and she walked in.
And when I opened the door and saw her laid on that floor,
next thing I know, I look up and I see 2 firefighters bringing my mother down the stairs, and she's crying, and the first thing she said is, "Deborah's gone." She said she's gone.
You've got, oh, this person was strangled here, this person was strangled here, this person was strangled here. Huh.
Tonight, police aren't taking any chances at all.
Looking back,
The killer is out there somewhere.
for myself, as a reporter, I keep thinking, why didn't we start putting 2 and 2 together? Then you have the police who are trained to do these kind of things. Why didn't they do it?
Look closely. Police say this is the face of a serial killer.
Who is this man who has confessed to the murders?
Once I touched him, so it was out of my control. It was out of my hands. So I couldn't stop it. There was no way I could stop it.
We have a possible serial killer working in the shadows.
And And somebody is killing young black women. All black women in their 20s, all strangled to death in their own home.
Is some kind of a bold demon here, one like never before.
He's hiding in plain sight, and he's doing it very cleverly. He fools everybody.
He portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
And I remember him telling me, it's gonna be okay, she's gonna come back. He hugged me. He knew he had killed her.
So he kind of walked into their life knowing that at some point he's going to take their lives.
I didn't want to, but something or somebody was taking over my body.
He writes a name, then a second name, then a third name, but he keeps going.
He was talking about killing women like you're in some sort of boring book club.
The general tone in Charlotte was, why didn't you guys figure this out earlier?
Saying that they didn't prioritize these murders because the victims were black women.
You guys blew it. How could you miss this?
It was this last Thursday the bodies of Brandy Henderson and Betty Jean Balcom were discovered. 2 days later, Deborah Slaughter was found just a mile away.
Investigators have now contacted the FBI trying to set up a profile of the killer.
Use caution, be careful, and think before you open the door.
We don't have a significant break anywhere in the case. We're still hoping that somebody may come forward with some information.
Charlotte police are desperate to find this killer. They do get something to work with from Brandy Henderson's boyfriend, Lamar.
We asked him who would Brandy allow into the home without any problem. And he said Henry Wallace.
Once the detective on Brandy Henderson's case got the names of who she would have let into the apartment, he went to see if any of them had any criminal history. Henry Wallace did. He had a misdemeanor larceny charge. And there was a mugshot of Henry Wallace.
That's when Detective James Stansberry, who's been investigating the Vanessa Mack case, walks into the room.
He comes in and he sees the photograph of Henry Wallace. In that mugshot, Henry Wallace is wearing a hoop cross earring in his ear.
I looked at the photograph and something hit me.
The detective remembers that from the ATM on Vanessa Mack's case.
I saw the earring with the cross.
And that's similar to the same earring that we saw on the picture of Henry Wallace's arrest photo.
I see this and say, we may have something here.
Investigators hope this car stolen from Balcom spawns new leads.
Betty Jean's car is found across the street from the crime scene, Nissan Pulsar, and that was the biggest break that they've had to date, which was inevitably what led them to their suspect.
They hit a jackpot near the trunk area of that car where they found a palm print. That palm print matched someone who was already in the system.
That palm print came back to Henry Louis Wallace.
So now we're going to look for the person, Henry Louis Wallace.
March 12, 1994, around 2 in the afternoon, Deborah Slaughter's body is found. 3 hours later, police locate Henry Wallace and place him under arrest.
And when the cops came in, he had bathroom door shut. And my bathroom door shut.
Hiding in there?
Hiding in there.
Initially, he is not giving up the goods.
The police sent in literally teams of detectives trying to get him to talk. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. They sent in 2 more. I don't know what you're talking about. Enter Detective Tony Rice.
Tony Rice goes into the room and started to talk to Henry.
And he said, Henry, you mind if we just say a little prayer together? And he actually held Henry's hand and said a prayer.
After the prayer, then Tony said, well, now, can you tell me about what happened?
Henry said, give me a piece of paper. And he started writing down all the names of the women.
He writes a name, then a second name, then a third name, and these are victims that police had already suspected him of murdering. But Henry Wallace keeps going. Another name, another name, another name. A total of 10 victims. Charlotte police are stunned.
That was the first the police knew of the depth of how many people he had killed.
Henry, if you would, go ahead and just talk up for me and state your full name.
Henry Lewis Wallace.
The police decided to record his confessions.
Shauna Hawk, I really didn't have any intentions of doing what I did to Shauna. I stopped by to see Shauna one day, and she gave me a hug. And when she gave me a hug, I had her real close, and I said, I want you to have sex with me. She said, you're joking, right? I said, no, I'm not. It's not a joke.
He gave a full confession. That's very unusual. Many of them deny it to their dying day, so to speak. But Henry Wallace didn't.
I told her to get dressed. I took her to the bathroom. That's where I maneuvered the chokehold on her. And so she passed out, and I filled the bathtub with water and placed her in it.
Coldest thing I ever heard in my life. He was talking about killing women like you're in some sort of boring book club.
Henry Wallace admits he raped each of his victims before killing them, and usually robbed them.
But what's really unusual is that Henry Wallace knew his victims, and they knew him.
That's what's different. He knew them, and he had to know them. He couldn't kill a stranger, he said.
I would always hear the voices of the people that I killed. I would always see them. I would always see a shadow of them. I would always hear their voices. I would always hear the, laughter from them.
Shauna Hawk's mother, Dee Sumter, says that Henry Wallace actually showed up at Shauna's wake.
I'm thinking this is some kind of a bold demon here, one like never before. Had the literal gall to show up at a service for someone that he knew he personally killed.
The thing that makes my blood run cold and just send shock shivers up and down my spine is the fact that I saw him after Shauna was murdered, and he expressed his condolences, and he hugged me, told me how sorry he was.
And he knew he had killed her.
I wanted to tell her so bad, Dee, I killed your daughter. But I was so scared. I was so scared. I couldn't do it.
I mean, to be hugged by your child's murderer, showing up and sending his sympathies, that is some cold, calculated stuff going on right there.
We begin to get a bit of a portrait of Henry Wallace emerging from the photos shown in court.
He had many strengths in growing up. People liked him, and he was social.
Henry was a great person, very nice guy, got along well with everyone.
Yearbook photos and schoolmates who spent time with him.
But he also had some, obviously, very lethal problems.
He would have had every opportunity in the world with any of us. He could have easily gotten any of us, but he didn't.
Was there satisfaction in that for you? I didn't want to, but something or somebody was taking over my body, and I couldn't stop, even when I tried to stop.
Police say this is the face of a serial killer, a man who choked the life out of neighbors and co-workers. His name is Henry Lewis Wallace.
Henry Wallace was born and raised in Barnwell, South Carolina, a small town about 3 hours south of Charlotte.
Before he became a serial killer, Henry Wallace was a fast food manager who had served in the Navy, had been married, and then divorced.
The news of his arrest shocked his hometown.
I still have a hard time believing now that it was
me too.
Our Henry.
Former classmates and the high school yearbook seem to portray a completely different image than that of a cold-blooded killer.
Henry was a great person, very nice guy.
He was a good guy. He was fun. He had the biggest smile, the biggest personality, always happy. You know, he was the first male cheerleader we ever had. I would have never guessed in a million years that Henry had any kind of issues where he would do what he's done. Never in a million years.
He would be the person who's responsible for more deaths in Mecklenburg, Charlotte, Mecklenburg than any other person that we've came in contact with.
I think the community was truly stunned. Those kinds of cases didn't happen here. Charlotte wasn't the kind of place where we would have a serial killer.
After Henry confessed to all of the murders that we believe he did in North Carolina, we began to formulate how are we going to tell the public.
Information indicates that this person was responsible for the murder of 10 women in Charlotte.
When we made the announcement, the city ate us alive. The media ate us alive.
I do remember the police coming out and saying, we have a serial killer, but you know what? Our officers did a great job.
The investigators worked tremendously hard and did an excellent job on the investigation of all of these 10 cases. We're sorry that we did not get him identified earlier. Had we done that, then we maybe could have saved the lives of some of these women.
The general tone in Charlotte was, why didn't you guys figure this out earlier?
The community became outraged.
The police was well aware of this a long time ago.
There were some in the community who criticized the Charlotte police, saying that they didn't prioritize these murders because the victims were black women.
I sat and just cried in my heart and outside because I wanted that same energy and effort to be extended to my child.
There was not a level of caring. This is where the racial disparity comes in.
We covered Dee, we covered her press conferences. One of the things that she made everyone think about and talk about was if these had been white women who were dying in South Charlotte, each killing would have been a huge story.
Race is always a factor in criminal investigations. Until America sees that it is not a factor or we have to mention it, do an interview, race is always going to be a factor.
All these cases were professionally and competently handled. There was nothing given short shrift.
One of the other stunning aspects of this case was how well Henry Wallace knew most of his victims.
And it seems that fast food restaurants are the common thread that bind Wallace to most of his alleged victims.
Everything was right here all along. It's been right here. And they've done everything except look right here.
Obvious connections. There's that word again, connecting the dots. In my humble opinion, blatantly ignored.
It was like, you guys blew it. How could you miss this?
It's not that we missed this, it's just that we were overwhelmed with the cases.
During that 2-year period that he was killing people, there were approximately 300 people murdered.
All of those cases were on desks of 6 homicide detectives in the 90s. We didn't have the technology. We definitely didn't have the manpower, and we definitely didn't have the resources.
When Henry Wallace confessed to police, he listed names of people that investigators didn't even know had been murdered.
Well, there is one name in particular on that list that I am certain wasn't on their radar at all, and that is Valencia Jumper.
Investigators say Valencia Jumper died in her third-floor apartment. They say this also appears to be the unit where the fire started.
Valencia Jumper came to Charlotte. She was a student at Johnson C. Smith University.
Henry Wallace knew Valencia's sister. That was their connection.
She was found in a house that had caught fire. That didn't fit any patterns before or after.
It was ruled that maybe she was out drinking with her friends and had too much to drink, put a pot of beans on the stove to eat, and the fire engulfed the apartment.
Investigators say they suspect Valencia Jumper was sleeping when the fire in her third-floor apartment broke out. They say a pot left on her stove started the fire.
I went into the kitchen and I opened a can of pork and beans or something, and I put it in a pot, put it on the stove, and I turned the stove on high.
He set the whole scene up that it looked like she fell asleep while she was cooking.
And I went to her kitchen. I noticed there was a bottle of rum, 151, and I poured the rum all over her body.
He considered her to be his little sister.
There were so many things in this case that were missed by various people. The only people who didn't miss the signs were her family. And her family fought tooth and nail to say this was not an accidental fire.
After Henry confessed, the medical examiner started re-examining the facts in that case. And one of the things that stood out was there was no soot or ash or anything in her throat where she breathed in smoke.
It should have been ruled that she was dead before the fire started. This case haunts me probably the most because of mistakes that were made, that had they not been made, Henry Wallace would have been charged then. And she was victim number 5. We wouldn't have had 5 more.
Henry Wallace's confession leaves veteran law enforcement shocked and almost caught off guard. But the next thing he does is remarkable. He takes the police on a field trip.
I knew this day was coming. I mean, I knew and I wanted it to come. And there have been several times during the actual crime that I was committing, I wanted to die. I ruined everything, man.
Henry Louis Wallace knew all of his victims, and they felt comfortable with him because he portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
Always very polite. It's the only male neighbor that I would even let in when my boyfriend wasn't at home. I mean, he was a friend. I trusted him.
Henry was like the perfect human predator.
So he kind of walked into their life knowing that at some point he's going to take their lives.
You never realized what Henry was all about. And by the time you did, it was too late.
If you would go ahead and start with the first name that you put on your list there. Carolyn Love, is it?
Caroline Love.
Where did you meet Carolyn?
Caroline, I met her through my girlfriend, Betty.
And so we go to the board and we're looking for certain names, and Carolina Love name is not on the homicide board. So why is this name on the list?
Caroline Love was a woman that went missing in June of '92. She was a friend of Wallace's girlfriend at the time.
Remember, Shauna Hawk and Caroline Love were friends and they were co-workers.
We talked to him and he was very forthcoming, and he gave us a lot of information.
I dumped her body on the left side near where a ditch kind of led from the highway back into the woods.
You think you could find it again?
I know I could.
And so we decided to find Carolina Love. We put Henry in the back of the van, and he directed us out to this remote area of the county to a field.
The investigators were told exactly where to look for another victim in this bizarre case.
And it was the skeletal remains of Caroline Love.
That tells the cops that this guy is for real. He's a killer because he's the only person who's going to know this.
We have to tell the public that this case was not a missing person, it is now a homicide.
Painful. I cried all yesterday. I cried all last night.
Caroline's family is even more devastated. This is the same man that went with Caroline's sister, Kathy, to file a missing persons report.
Caroline's niece, Sarah, was only 8 years old when her aunt went missing. And who comforted her during that time? Henry Wallace.
Then I remember being in her room with him and sitting on his lap. And I remember being sad and crying. And I remember him telling me, it's gonna be okay, she's gonna come back.
The same day that Henry is consoling Sarah, the police arrive to speak with Caroline's family. They have no idea the killer is in their midst, listening to every word.
And in talking to him, he remembered us talking to Caroline Love's family about her having an orange jumpsuit from Bojangles. He said after hearing that conversation, he decided to go back and remove that orange jumpsuit from her, because if we were looking for it, it would be easily seen by an aerial helicopter or somebody's walking by.
He returned to her body disposal site, which was outside, numerous times.
I went back a couple of times since then, so I was really where the body was.
Caroline's family, who had held out hope for so long about the fate of their loved one, now have to face the cruel reality that her remains have been found.
You told me she would come back, but you didn't tell me she would come back like that. I mean, we didn't have anything to go back to. Her body was bones.
Back in the interrogation room, detectives ask one final question.
Is there anything else you can remember, Henry? That's it. Anybody else that you can think of in Charlotte or anywhere else that anything like this has ever happened to you before? You lived in South Carolina with your mom. Anything there that you remember? One person. Tell us about her. Her name was Shanda Bethay. They called her Shan.
Henry Wallace confesses to police that he killed 18-year-old Tashanda Bethay in 1990 in his hometown of Barnwell, South Carolina. It's believed that Tashanda was his first victim.
She left home about 5 o'clock on the 19th, and they reported her missing on the 20th because she didn't return home.
She was walking one day. I picked her up, and I told her that we were going out to get some pot. And I pulled off to the side of the road into the ravine area.
Tashanda's body was found 2 weeks later by people fishing in a local pond.
The autopsy results show that she was strangled.
A few days later, Henry Wallace is brought in for questioning.
He was a very strong suspect, but we had nothing on him. He covered his alibis good.
I was questioned about her death, but I did not.
After literally getting away with murder, Henry Wallace moved to North Carolina, where he would kill again and again and again.
It's absolutely devastating. You sitting there thinking the worst, hoping for the best, and that's exactly what these relatives were doing. And unfortunately, it was not a good ending.
Henry Wallace, dubbed by some in the media as the Taco Bell Strangler, confesses to killing 11 women. But the question remains, why?
Two of the FBI's most respected mind hunters want to know what's inside Henry Wallace's mind.
He had some obviously very lethal problems.
They sit him down for interviews and put it all on videotape.
It was out of my control.
For years, the FBI has been developing behavioral profiling techniques. And there's a woman named Ann Burgess, a professor and author from Boston College, who has helped them.
Until we understand what's going on in the mind of the criminal, we're going to have more and more victims.
She was one of the few women in the FBI at the time doing that work, and I thought it was time to get her story out there. So after a little bit of convincing, she agreed to write this book, A Killer by Design. Wallace is featured in the book because he was a really interesting case.
Henry Wallace was, not that we would call him atypical, but certainly very different from some of the others. People liked him, and he was social.
Burgess was tapped by Henry Wallace's defense team to do an analysis on his mind.
The jury was to decide whether he deserved death or whether he deserved life. They just asked us to do a background and present what we thought.
She and retired FBI agent Robert Ressler visited Wallace inside the jail and conducted interviews. All of it was put on videotape.
The footage was provided exclusively to ABC News 2020.
Henry Wallace was quite open in what he talked about. He had many strengths in growing up, but he also had some obviously very lethal problems.
Do you understand any of this any better since you had a chance to kind of reflect on it?
Within this shell, there are two people. One person being a chameleon. He will adapt to anything, any environment, any situation, and he's a very well respected, very well liked person. He almost lures the women in for the other person.
So he had good Henry and bad Henry. Good Henry was a friendly person that made friends very easily, dated women very easily.
But then he said the bad Henry would come out, the monster, so to speak. He came out, he was angry, he had to kill them. Why he couldn't stay good Henry for a long time, we don't know, but he just couldn't.
But what's generating the anger?
Experiences in the past.
One of the reasons that Wallace points to for committing his crimes is he did have a really tough upbringing.
Henry tells them that when he was a child, he was molested. He also reveals that he and his mother, when he was growing up, had an extremely volatile relationship.
I was terrified of my mother. Terrified.
From
the beatings.
Henry also described being constantly teased about being a cheerleader and other things.
He was teased about his size, he was teased about his color.
Wallace was trying to reshape this really terrible childhood that he had by taking out his aggressions on people that he knew as if that was a replacement for the bad situations of his past.
He married his high school sweetheart, this prom photo capturing them in happier times.
But the marriage didn't last long and ended right before he moved to Charlotte.
It all starts collapsing after the wife left him.
I grew to hate her very much. And there's still a lot of hatred inside for her. And I think that had I lived in South Carolina and not Charlotte, she would probably be one of the victims.
Wallace did think about killing his wife, but he was not able to actually go through with it.
I think that the majority of the victims reminded me of her in some way. Or when the murder and rape was taking place, who I was seeing was her and not the victim.
After his marriage dissolved, then Henry had to move back in with his mother.
That really kind of was the straw that broke it all down. And that's when he started into his murderous behavior.
My mom was very violent, and I think more than, other than a mate in these women, I was looking for a mother as well, or traits of my mother. And they were there, and all of them.
Henry Wallace was danger disguised as a friend, and his victims never saw him coming.
They felt comfortable with him because he portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
I think that was one of his motivations in a lot of these killings, was they were women he liked who didn't like him that way.
That's a more classic kind of a type of motive, if you will, for a serial killer.
One of the biggest questions for Burgess and Ressler was, how did Henry Wallace evade police for so long?
The only time that the police were concerned when the two murders occurred on the same day. That's when Barkham and Henderson.
Same day.
Yeah. That's when all of a sudden they started seeing connections and things that had happened 20 months ago.
You've got to do the victimology first. because they would have realized that they knew each other in some capacity. And that would have been a way to then zero in on Henry.
Burgess testified for the defense, and she told the jury that Wallace, while he was committing these murders, was in an alternate mental state.
I did feel that he was not in total control of his thoughts, that he was being controlled, if you will, by the obsession.
Henry Wallace was convicted of the rape and murder of 9 women.
I think we all knew what the verdict was going to be. Guilty. So the real question was, does he live? Does he die?
The jury recommended death. And again, I don't think anyone was terribly surprised.
It's such a sad case. It's not like you celebrate.
I just want people to not forget, you know, what happened to these girls in Charlotte, North Carolina. We don't want people to go around and hear the name Henry Wallace and not know who he is, you know, because, you know, he was a black serial killer that killed a lot of black women. I want the world to know what happened and that these girls' lives mattered.
Finally, there's justice. But there's one more victim of Henry Wallace's rampage. The sole survivor is now all grown up.
"18-year-old Brandy Henderson strangled to death."
Brandy Henderson's 10-month-old baby was also attacked and left for dead.
Henry said he got mad and said, "You got to do something with this baby. You got to shut this baby up," because Tyrese was sitting right there beside her. He was pulling on his mom, on Brandy. So he took a pair of shorts and tied around his neck until he got quiet.
I think about Brandy's child often. How do you go on with your life? How does any loved one go on with their life when something this horrible happens?
The picture that we took of him at the hospital, it's like I still see that picture in my mind every day.
After he got out of the hospital, his father took him to Chicago. And when Tyrese was 5, his father passed away.
I'm still here. If it wasn't me reading these stories, I would have thought that I had died. So I'm like, reading these, well, I know this baby died. I know this. He survived? Are you freaking serious? He's well, he has a family, he's married, he's doing something with his show.
You know those pop rock candies? That's like him. That's exactly what I can describe him as. He's a ball of energy.
I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur. I try and be a great role model because I do have 3 sons.
He's been through a lot of things. He's had it rough.
He realized he never grieved for his mother, and he grew up without his mother's love.
I went through a whole grieving class. I wrote my mama a letter. I told her I was mad. I told her I was angry. I told her how much I missed her. I told her how sorry I was because I know that I wasn't doing the right things.
When I heard about his mother, inside I was crying, outside I was strong. I'm finding out more and more about the situation with his mother every day. I went and searched for it just to know, what type of woman she was and how it's instilled in him.
She was such a great mother. She would have done anything at all for him. Brandy told me that when she had Tyrese, that she felt like her life was complete.
They tell me that she was a great person. They say that she wanted the best for me. They're like, I was her masterpiece. It's like, I'm somebody's masterpiece. Like, that's a huge compliment for me.
I saw Tyrese when he was like 9 years old. We went to Chicago and visited him. But since that time, I lost track. I feel guilty about it, but I just could not stay in contact with him because I knew he would have all these questions and I wasn't ready.
After 20 years, Brandy's cousin and close friend, George Burrell, is now reuniting with Brandy's son, Tyrese.
What's up?
Oh, man.
What's up, old boy?
Oh, my gosh, man.
I've been in Charlotte.
Wow. Yes. And hello.
Liz, George,
Nice to meet
Liz.
you, Liz.
Finally.
Man, it's good to see you.
You too. You getting old. You got
thank
gray
you.
hair. You got a gray beard.
See that?
Yeah.
The guilt, you know, when she told me, come over and see me that night, and I didn't go, and then he came and killed me.
Yeah, man. Hey, look, as Brandy's son, listen, tell me how, as her son, my boy, you're not responsible for anything that happened to us. I also remember her life isn't the only life. It was also other victims and it's other family members who feel the same pain.
You healed, but you still got them scars.
Look at my neck, dog.
Man. I remember that, looking at you through the hospital door. Like I'm shaking. Wow. That's how close, look at that, that's how close you came to not being here. Oh my word. Wow. Your lips are still red from being strangled.
Yeah, and that was the main part. I'm like, that's why I say I'm the only survivor. Like, that's a survivor.
Yeah.
That little baby right there, like.
And that's you now.
Yeah, that's me now. Still with the tears and all, bro.
Wow.
At trial, Henry Wallace was found guilty of the assault on Tyrese.
I just like, why didn't I die? Truthfully, I wanted to die for a long time. As I started learning more that I'd be too selfish. She fought too hard to keep me alive. And that's why I didn't die. There's no time frame on grieving. There's no time frame on how long you can and can't miss somebody. But it's like, I'm a survivor.
Wallace was sentenced to death, but now he's asking a judge for a new trial.
For him to be here pleading for his life, not fair. It's not justice.
And I just believe it's time. It's time for us to finally see that end. It's 25 years this year that he was sentenced to death, and I'm ready for him to be executed.
I think he got an appropriate sentence, but North Carolina has not executed anyone in a very long time.
My goal now is to start a petition and let people sign that so that we can get an execution date and finally get this resolved.
I was determined that I wasn't going to hate him. You kind of have to let it go, otherwise it will consume you.
I don't feel hate for him now. I started journaling, and it really did help.
I forgave Henry years ago for the madness of what he did.
I don't harbor that hate for him, but I do think that justice should be served.
Audrey is buried in South Carolina. My dad donated an acre of land for a new cemetery, and Audrey was the first one buried in that cemetery.
She has a niece named Audrey Lynette Franklin. Part of her legacy will definitely continue, so we're excited about that.
She does have a son. His name is Eric Slaughter. He reminds me of Deborah a lot. I think she would be very proud of him and the progress that he has made in his life.
I just wanted mothers to come together and join our forces and our hearts. MAMO, Mothers of Murdered Offspring.
The whole point in MAMO being created was to make sure that Shauna's memory lived on.
Should have never happened. But it made us better detectives, and it made Charlotte Police Department a better homicide unit.
In a statement to 2020 about the Wallace investigation, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department says the detectives worked the cases as diligently as they would have any homicide case, with the race of the victim being irrelevant. In the aftermath of the murders, the department says it added staffing to the homicide unit and implemented regular mandatory meetings to better identify related cases.
You know, the guys in the homicide unit, I know them all from that time. It's just that they were put in a situation where you just couldn't win.
Listen to the families, because they are the voices of the victims.
I fight for my own breath sometimes. I fight to be here. If I had $1 for every time that I've been told, Miss Sumter, I know I'm gonna make it because you're making it. None of these young African-American ladies deserve to die. They were young ladies who deserve to have a bright future. And so, you know, my hope and prayer is that even though it's tragic.
My grandfather was a detective on one of the biggest unsolved murders in our generation.
This was a child who was put to bed by her parents and never woke up.
They just kept saying, no, no, ask God to raise her.
Police found evidence from the beginning that in their minds pointed directly to the Ramseys.
They knew at the time that there was DNA and that it was not from Ramsey's DNA.
We, the media, lapped up what the Boulder Police Department wanted to tell us.
All of us that wanted to pursue the intruder were being removed from the case.
And he just said, I have a name, I want you to write it down. And I did, and he said, that's where you start. All but one person on that list is innocent.
Then you got your killer.
Until the day we die, we'll be looking for the person that murdered our daughter.
In 1996, a little girl named JonBenet Ramsey was 6 years old.
She was brutally assaulted and murdered on Christmas night in the basement of her home in Boulder, Colorado.
Hey guys, welcome to our first ever podcast episode. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Jessa.
And I'm Lexi.
And we're sisters.
I think there's a new generation who's into the JonBenet Ramsey case who were her age and were told to stay inside by their parents when she was murdered.
I think, yeah, growing up it scared me a little bit because we were the same age and, you know, same state and blonde hair, blue eye, you know, it was a little bit scary.
I remember thinking that I could not believe that this happened like so close to our home. You think that your home is safe, that this place is safe, and you just don't think that it could have happened here, and it did.
The murder took place sometime between 10 p.m. on December 25th and 5:30 a.m. on December 26th, 1996.
They know a lot about the case. My two girls, they loved their grandfather.
Our grandfather was a detective on one of the biggest unsolved murders in our generation, the JonBenet Ramsey murder. And with this podcast, we want to talk about the JonBenet Ramsey case from our grandfather, Lou Smith's perspective.
Lou Smith was a really legendary detective from Colorado that was brought in early to investigate the homicide.
Once he got a hold of a case, he never let go, and he had great attention to detail.
Lou Smith made an 8-hour video presentation that includes notes on the case, potential suspects, the evidence he collected over the years. It's a virtual encyclopedia of the JonBenet Ramsey case.
My name is Lou Smith. I'm a retired homicide detective from the Colorado Springs Police Department, and I have worked the Ramsey case now for approximately 10 years. What I'm going to do today is to just show a presentation that was made back in 1998.
He had a history of closing cases. He had a 90% success rate.
He advocated for the victim and stood in their shoes.
So that's why we've chosen The Victim's Shoes as our podcast name.
This really meant something to him, and he really felt he needed to find the killer of this little girl, and he needed to do that for JonBenet.
And first and foremost, we wanted to continue our grandpa's legacy. That was one thing he asked for before he died. He wants the case to remain alive.
There's a saying here in Colorado that Boulder is 30 square miles of fantasy surrounded by reality.
It's very wealthy, it's well-to-do.
Boulder looked like something out of a storybook in many ways, especially the neighborhood in which the Ramseys lived.
John and Patsy Ramsey lived in a 6,700 square feet Tudor there on 15th Street.
What I'd like to do first is to just talk a little bit about the Ramsey family. John Ramsey had interest in sailing and flying. Patsy Ramsey was the mother.
John and Patsy Ramsey had 2 children together. Their firstborn was Burke, 9 years old, and John Bonet, 6 and a half, in kindergarten.
I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm a wife and a mother. John used to tell people that I invested in futures, the futures of my children. That's how I usually answer my occupation.
My name is John Andrew Ramsey. Jean Bonnet's half-brother. Jean Bonnet would go around and ask everybody how their day was and what they did, and he was just an energetic and fun kid.
By all accounts, they were a happy couple. Patsy was a high society woman from Atlanta. John was a smart guy who had just been nominated or voted as Entrepreneur of the Year.
Patsy Ramsey was a stylish woman. She was a former beauty queen, Miss West Virginia.
Oh, that is interesting because the case had gained so much attention because John Bonet was in pageants.
By the time John Bonet was 4 years old, she was in the pageant system with big hair and lots of makeup.
I think it starts with the video of John Bonet. It starts with the fact that you have this beauty pageant video of a 6-year-old. That is where this starts, is people start saying, what's that about? How could that have played in?
I think it also touches on parents who have young kids, like, could this happen to me?
I really believe that if we hadn't seen the beauty pageant photos of John Bonet Ramsey, it might have just gone into the ether as another child murder. Hundreds of children are murdered in America every year. But this one captivated us because we saw the beauty pageant pictures.
Hello, I'm Patsy Ramsey. This is Jean Bonet. She's 4, Burke is 7.
Well, Christmas seemed to be kind of a crescendo for our family. It just became this moment that we all look forward to, and it's a day of peace and quiet.
Christmas was Patsy's favorite time, and she really went all out. She had a Christmas tree for every room, and every tree had a theme. The windows were done with garland, the staircases had garland, there were red ribbons everywhere.
Everything was about entertaining, and she loved people. She loved to make people feel good.
And from all of us at our house to everyone at your house, Merry Christmas and the happiest of New Year's.
There was plenty to celebrate in the Ramsey home. Patsy Ramsey had recently been declared clear of this ovarian cancer that she had battled. And that was a huge relief to come back from stage 4 cancer. Plenty to celebrate that Christmas.
So on Christmas Day, the Ramsey family opened presents at their home that morning. Patsy made pancakes, John Bonet rode her bike around on the patio, and both John Bonet and Burke had friends over to play that morning.
The kids went outside to play with their friends with their new presents. They were going to a friend's house for dinner that night.
We were going to leave early the next morning for a trip to our summer cottage in Michigan. It was going to be the first time we'd gotten all of our family together in Michigan for kind of a post-Christmas celebration. So we came home, went to bed. John Bonet was asleep when we arrived home. We took her to bed, got Burke to bed, set the alarm, and went to sleep.
The next morning, Patsy was up first.
You get up, you're dressed. What happens?
I went down our steps from our bedroom to the second floor. Then I started walking down the spiral staircase. And as I came to the bottom of the stairs, there were 3 pages neatly laid across one of the runs of the stairway.
She picked up the note and she started to read it.
I just remember when I read, "We have your daughter," it just this overwhelming fear.
And then?
Then I just screamed for John. Screamed.
We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on. What's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God!
I was the call taker that night shift when the call came in.
Police, what's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? Oh my God! Please.
She's hysterical. She says there's a kidnapping.
Please. I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got up and she's right here. Oh my God, please.
The note said, if you do anything, if police come, if FBI come, your daughter will die. You called 911.
Yes, I did. I had to do something. I had to take action.
And I mean, all this happened in a matter of moments.
Patsy calls 911 at 5:52 a.m. and the first officer arrives at 5:55.
Wow, that's fast.
I know, that's really fast. More friends start to arrive and more officers start to arrive. So at this point, lots of people are at the house.
We called friends for help at that point. Your daughter is gone.
Desperate.
She's in the hands of a madman.
My phone rang. Pam, they've got her. What do you mean they've got her? They've kidnapped JonBenet. She's gone.
What was the atmosphere like as you sat and waited?
Well, it was awful. First of all, we didn't know whether the kidnapper was going to call that day because the note said, I will call you tomorrow. Get plenty of rest. I was deathly afraid that tomorrow was in fact the 27th.
You lose all perception of time, of place. You've just been dealt a horrible, crushing blow.
The police came in just before 6 o'clock in the morning on the 26th of December, thinking that we had a missing child. They go into this beautiful house with 18 or so rooms.
And they did a cursory search of the residence, and they didn't find anything.
The mistakes they made were outrageous. They were mystifying. They were mistake after mistake after mistake.
The police did a terrible, terrible job securing that scene. And if you don't secure the scene, you don't get good evidence. People were streaming through that house. They were in the kitchen, they were in the living room. There were some friends of Patsy's that were helping her wipe up the kitchen. There could have been fingerprints there.
You had friends that were Windexing the sink and washing dishes. And
People were making toast in the kitchen. And yes, a kidnapping is a crime scene, but we were so focused on getting JonBenet back. That was the task.
What we have learned is that everyone should have been sequestered into an area so that people weren't roaming around the house.
And that was a mistake on my part. The reason I didn't is because these people were the Ramsey support system. There was no information at all to indicate the family was involved at that point.
It was a crime scene, and it was getting contaminated. The note was being passed around and reviewed by all of their friends.
Of all of the evidence left behind, that ransom note is the most baffling. Number one, it is too damn long. A ransom note is not that long. A ransom note says, I have your child, I want $1 million, I'll call you later.
This is the infamous ransom note. It begins,
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully.
It was 3 pages long, and some people believe that a kidnapper that was truly kidnapping somebody would have written a very direct and to the point ransom note.
3 pages? What was that about?
That ransom note was the War and Peace of ransom notes.
Who would write a 3-page rambling ransom note other than someone trying to cover their tracks who was in the house.
It's the weirdest ransom note I've ever read.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills.
You think about this number and how is it relevant? And it's relevant because John Ramsey got a bonus from his company for $118,000. How many people knew that? I'm going to guess not a lot of people.
Our grandpa compared the note to some examples that he found in movies.
John? The movie Ransom was playing in Boulder.
I have your son.
Oh, Jesus.
I want $2 million.
Oh, God.
In that particular movie, a fat cat industrialist, his son was kidnapped. There's a lot of the same verbiage in this note as was in even the note that was written in that particular movie.
If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies.
If you talk to anyone, I don't care if it's a Pekingese pissing against a lamppost, the girl dies.
You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John.
Do not attempt to grow a brain. Our guy's a real watcher of that particular type of movies.
Dan, what does this tell you in terms of evidence?
First of all, that someone felt comfortable spending the time writing this long note in the house.
And whoever wrote the note is about to go from a kidnapping suspect to a murder suspect.
The ransom note had indicated there would be a call between 8 and 10 a.m.
And the police prepped me on how to respond to a phone call, and it's very important that you hear John Bonet's voice.
Police officers were leaving at 9:30 and 9:45 before that time period of the phone call had even expired. One lone detective was left on the scene.
Detective Linda Arndt is left behind in the house with John and Patsy Ramsey. She didn't have extensive homicide experience managing a kidnapping and what was about to unfold. This was likely pretty overwhelming for one lone police officer.
Everyone is cleared but the family friends, victim advocates, and the detective.
So nobody was cleared.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me because everyone should be cleared from the scene.
The house is full of people. And so this is a crime scene that is now being destroyed piece by piece.
I was praying. Linda Arndt had said to me, we're hopeful that the kidnappers will just drop John Bonet off someplace. And I kept looking out the window, clutching this cross and just imagining that she was going to come running down the street.
They're waiting for a telephone call from the kidnapper. What's going to happen next?
10 o'clock comes and goes, and there's no acknowledgement that the deadline imposed by the author of the ransom note is come and gone.
Nobody seemed to mark it or freak out about it. She noticed John Ramsey checking his mail in the kitchen and thought that was odd.
Linda Arndt tells the restless John, why don't you look around the house, see if anything is missing or looks strange.
Check the house, top to bottom. Look for anything that might belong to John Bonet that is in place where it shouldn't be.
John took a friend with him. They went to the basement, and John opened the door.
You opened the door to the small room.
I knew instantly what I'd found. I'd found my daughter. She was lying on a white blanket. The blanket was wrapped around her. Her hands were tied above her head. She had tape over her mouth. I immediately knelt down over her, felt her cheek, took the tape off immediately off her mouth. I tried to untie the cord that was around her arms. I couldn't get the knot untied. Picked her up, and I ran upstairs and laid her on the floor and still had a hope that she was alive.
And I see John Ramsey carrying JonBenet up the last 3 steps from the basement. She looked like she was sleeping. She had some marks on her face and on her neck. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite and he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting, I've got 18 bullets.
Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up.
She clearly felt in danger. At that moment, she made it clear that she thought that John Ramsey killed his daughter and that they might kill her. It was shocking to me that she would think that.
How is it that you have all these cops searching a home and nobody finds the body, but you asked John Ramsey to go look for things out of the ordinary, and he finds his daughter in a room that had never been opened by anybody in law enforcement? That's crazy.
He lays her on the living room floor where just a few minutes before, friends and neighbors have been walking and, you know, bringing in fibers and whatever to contaminate the scene. And then the coup de grace. He grabs a blanket, which is full of who knows what kind of contaminants, and throws it over the body.
Patsy was being kept out of the room, and I didn't want Patsy to see JonBenet laying there like that.
I remember walking in and seeing her lying there in front of the Christmas tree. I knelt down over her and just laid my body on her body and my cheek against her cheek, and it was cold. And Father Raw was there. And he started saying the last rites, I believe. And I just kept saying, no, no, you know, ask God to raise her.
So we're talking a major blunt force. This is just a massive blow.
But the ultimate cause of death was strangulation with something called a garrote.
Brad, what type of a weapon is a garrote? How does it work?
It's a device of a string, and it's wrapped around what ends up being a piece of a paintbrush. And what happens is, as JonBenet is losing consciousness, she's leaning forward. And so this gets tighter and tighter, and you can see how it cuts into my hand. You can see exactly why it cut into her neck. And that ultimately, according to the ME, is what killed her.
It seems to me that she had been attempting to remove the ligature from around her neck, and that tells me she was alive when she was garroted.
There were signs that JonBenet had also been sexually abused. The broken pieces of the paintbrush that were used for the garrote were also used to sexually assault her.
What does it tell you about the murderer? Just how vicious and awful this death was for her?
A person that would do this to a 6-year-old in this fashion clearly is into sort of sadistic behavior, that they like torture to a certain extent. This is clearly somebody who was really into this.
And was here with the intent to kill.
There was no evidence of a break-in. There was no jimmying on the front door. There were 4 people in that house, and 1 died overnight. From the very beginning, they suspected the parents.
Within minutes of JonBenet's body being found, this was who they were going to go after, and that's what they did.
The police are thinking, we got to talk to those parents, and we got to talk to them right now before they start getting their story straight together.
They brought JonBenét's body out past the candy canes that were decorating the front of the house, and there were only like 2 reporters outside to capture that. And then the storm happened.
JonBenét Ramsey, the little girl in Colorado, was murdered.
Beauty queen JonBenet. JonBenét's murder has frightened residents of Boulder.
News outlets from around the world had descended upon Boulder and were just hiding in trees and bushes and digging through our trash, following me around town. I mean, it was war.
The JonBenet Ramsey case was completely out of control.
You also have to remember the O.J. Simpson case had wrapped up. The 24-hour news cycle, their content had dried up. And so along came the Ramsey family, and we fit right into that slot.
JonBenet Ramsey was a precocious 6-year-old. She had been strangled to death in the basement of her own home.
You have the shock, this incredibly horrendous crime. And then you have these videos that surface. Of this beautiful young girl.
JonBenet Ramsey! Dark blonde hair and green eyes.
Dancing in her costumes, and those were the first viral videos.
She'd like to become an Olympic ice skater.
It's part of what turned it into an international circus.
Now we have Instagram and we have Snapchat, but back then, this was one of the first moments in time where something truly went viral. This little girl's image was everywhere overnight.
The biggest negative factor about John and Patsy Ramsey was that they had allowed their daughter to be in child beauty pageant contests, and people did not like them.
As our grandpa stated, this was a brutal, premeditated murder, not just a little doink on the head covered up by perverted staging.
It seems unimaginable to most parents out there that any parent could do something this brutal, this heinous to their own child, and yet police found evidence from the beginning that in their minds pointed directly to the Ramseys.
Particularly, Amy, when you start with children of this age, when they die, tend to die at the hands of their parents. So the focus is naturally going to be on the parents to begin with. Now, in the house, the ransom note is written on a pad that belongs to Patsy. So this is the notepad. This location right here is where the note was physically found by Patsy. The pen that was used was in the house.
So this is the garrote that was used in the murder of JonBenet, and it's a special significance because of what it was made from.
Yes, it basically is an artist's paintbrush that's broken, and what's important is that it actually came from Patsy's art supply.
And there were even fibers on the backside of the duct tape that had been on JonBenet's mouth from Patsy's clothing.
And that was very, very important. But there are problems because Patsy lived in that house. Would those fibers have been there anyway?
The police started thinking, well, maybe this is just a cover-up, that the Ramseys harmed their child some way, then panicked and tried to create basically a kidnapping scenario.
Patsy and John should have been taken to the police station immediately for separate interviews, for examination of their body for defensive wounds, for collection of their clothing. That never happened.
At this point, they haven't interviewed the mother or father. Not surprisingly, they're still very grief-stricken. They have not been in any kind of condition to be interviewed.
A couple of days after he finds his daughter's body in the basement, police speak with John Ramsey, but this is not a formal interrogation.
My father, myself, we all marched into that police station, gave blood, we gave hair, we gave fingerprints. The thing that really stuck with me is 2 detectives hand me their business cards, and one says narcotics officer and the other says auto theft. And I bury my head into my hands because I knew at that point we were in a bad spot. Boulder police didn't have the resources to solve a complex homicide.
John interviewed with Boulder police. Patsy's doctor said she was too medicated and unable to get out of bed.
The police were faced with lawyers and wealthy friends, people in the community who told the police, please give them room, they're grieving, what's the matter with you?
Though the police had spoken to the Ramseys, what they really wanted to do was formally interrogate them.
The police are thinking, we got to talk to those parents, and we got to talk to them right now before they start getting their story straight together.
Your lawyers advised you then not to submit to police questions. Why not? People say, wouldn't you have wanted to tell them everything?
Well, I don't recall that our lawyers told us that at the time. We said, you know, yeah, we want to keep working with you, but can't you come here? We can't go out. Patsy was in bed. Patsy was barely able to move. We were perfectly willing and anxious to work with the police to find the killer. We had a higher priority at that point, and that was to bury our daughter.
The family is flying the body back to Atlanta for burial.
On New Year's Eve, JonBenet was laid to rest just outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
This service is in loving memory of JonBenet Patricia Ramsey.
We flew back to Atlanta to bury JonBenet, Atlanta being our home. Atlanta being where my oldest sister Beth is buried.
We give thanks today for JonBenet, for the love that she had for her parents.
I want to go back to the funeral.
Whatever we do, we're gonna go through it together. We may not get far, but sure as the star, wherever we are, it's together.
Wherever we are, it's together.
We sang that. She and I sang that together. We'd sing it driving in the car, and we just knew that we would always be together in everything. I wanted my children to know that I was with them through thick and thin, regardless of what happened in life. You know, unconditional love.
Oh, look at that. You can go places now.
Every murder case that I've ever done, the parents are so grief-stricken, but they sometimes make a nuisance out of themselves at the police department.
The Ramseys, literally the day after JonBenet's funeral, sit down for a television interview.
The next thing the police knew, they were on CNN.
The Boulder police don't interrogate the Ramseys, but they remain the main suspects.
Many people found the Ramseys' behavior peculiar, suspicious, weird, off balance, and from that thought, they must be guilty.
When you realized that you two were the prime suspects, what did you think? What did you feel? What did you say?
Well, we were outraged. We were shocked. How could they think that? We were a normal family.
I just didn't believe it. You just can't believe it. I mean, you were suffering from having lost our child. And then for someone to accuse you, it's just, you can't believe that would happen.
A lot of people said, you know, if that were me, I'd be on the steps of the police department finding the murderer of my daughter. Then they go on CNN and say they didn't do it.
If anyone knows anything, please help us.
We've sensed from our friends that this tragedy has touched not just ourselves and our friends, but many people.
As a mother, my heart went out to this couple.
And if I were a resident of Boulder, I will tell my friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there.
But my journalistic brain said to me, this isn't right. They should be talking to the police, not the public.
Police end their 10-day search of the Ramsey house and remove the crime scene tape.
It is unknown if the family intends to resume residency at the home. We have no comment on the whereabouts of the family at this time.
Starting from the beginning of this case, we, the media, lapped up what the Boulder Police Department wanted to tell us about what they were doing in the JonBenet Ramsey case.
For the most part, the police were very tight-lipped in this thing. They didn't tell us a lot of secrets. They didn't leak a lot of information. Other than broadly, we think the mom did it.
People who believe Patsy killed their daughter believe it was over a bedwetting and then staged to look like an intruder.
The bedwetting theory was a big theory at the time. The bedwetting theory suggests that Patsy was angry with JonBenét and killed her because the bed was wet.
I'm a cancer survivor of stage 4 cancer. When you are standing on the brink of death with a terminal illness, your priorities suddenly line up. Bedwetting is totally insignificant. I love my children. I wouldn't harm them for anything in the world.
But Americans were fascinated with the possibility that the Ramseys might have done this.
What happened in that house? Did she go berserk and hurt JonBenét, by accident, not on purpose certainly? Did Burke hurt her by mistake and cause her death?
It was leaked by Boulder police that it was possible that Burke Ramsey's voice was on the 911 call that Patsy had made.
Patsy? Patsy?
The 911 operator believed that she heard an unexplained voice at the end of the 911 call.
Patsy Ramsey has put the phone down, but she hasn't hung it up. And the 911 recording continues.
I heard her say, okay, I've called the police, now what? And I thought, And then I heard two people talking to her, and I heard a male voice respond, and then I heard a more faint voice respond.
Some speculated at the time that faint voice might have been Burke, but the family denied it, saying he was asleep at the time. We asked an expert to weigh in on the call.
My name is Ed Primo. I'm an audio-video forensic expert, and I was asked about what people have heard throughout the years from this 911 call. Here we go.
What's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God!
So when Patsy is speaking to the operator, we could clearly see bright yellow and orange colors. And as I zoom in to the recording here, I can see the formants. This is a visual representation of sound. The brighter the color, the louder the volume.
Patsy? Patsy?
The sound changes right here, the section in question where people are hearing voices. We can see some sounds, but we don't see the formants like we saw over here. So I can't rely on those being words. There's just not enough signal to noise ratio in order to be able to perceive what those sounds are. They could be noise and they could be voices. I just can't, as a scientist, arrive at a reasonable conclusion.
The Secret Service and the FBI also concluded that no additional conversation is audible.
I think we've given way too much weight on whether or not Burke Ramsey was present when Mom makes the 911 call. If Burke's voice was there or John Ramsey's voice is there, does that mean they're the killer?
And it's important to remember that the Boulder police never considered Burke a suspect. They suspected the parents, even though the Ramseys had no history of abuse or neglect of their children.
All the evidence shows me that up until this point, they were devoted parents.
Would you get up in the middle of the night and slaughter your child? We're parents. We love our children.
There's so many puzzle pieces here that just don't fit.
Do you really think your daughter's murderer will be found?
Yes, I do. Because the killer has never been pursued. An objective, wide investigation hasn't taken place. The parents have been focused on it. That's all that's been done.
It might be an unknown entity then, not one of the suspects we've all been currently talking about and dissecting.
I don't think it's any of the suspects we're talking about.
What we know is that just within a few mile radius of the Ramseys' home, there was approximately 38 to 40 sex offenders in that area. And the question is, have they all been completely vetted?
Was it an accident? Was it intentional, premeditated?
I want to say something to the person or persons that took this baby from us. The list of suspects narrows. Soon there will be no one on the list but you.
of John Bonet. How many victims has he had in the past? And how many victims is he going to have in the future?
The grand jury couldn't point the finger at one or the other, but they were convinced that it was one of the two of them and that the other one helped.
Go back to the damn drawing board.
There was a person seen going across the lawn of the Ramsey house.
Lou dedicated a big part of his life to finding JonBenet's murderer.
Detective Lou Smith was like, whoa.
He just said, I have a name. I want you to write it down.
Lou took all of the information that he had and developed a database.
3 generations of my family has been involved working on the JonBenet Ramsey case.
First officer arrives at 5:55.
Wow, that's fast.
I know, that's really fast.
Lou Smith's family believes that all but one person on that list is innocent.
We're in better position today than we've ever been to solve the JonBenet Ramsey case.
JonBenet was an entertainer. She would entertain at the drop of a hat.
She loved to sing and dance and perform. It was a natural for her.
I competed with JonBenet. She had all these wonderful costumes and outfits, and she had this presence.
Third runner-up, JonBenet.
It wasn't really a competition to her. It was more of like, this is fun, like let's go on stage and do that.
My name is JonBenet Ramsey, and I'm 5.5.
What is your favorite animal at the zoo?
The monkeys, because they laugh and stuff and hang around.
Today, that little girl would be 30 years old.
I was her age. She would be my age now. She would be pursuing her own career. She never got to grow up. She is frozen in time now.
Well, the police were convinced pretty early on that Patsy and/or John were involved. And you had a district attorney's office that was saying, not so fast. And that created enormous tension between the two.
Did you hear anything yesterday? I think there are some new developments.
Alex Hunter, the district attorney, wanted someone to come in with fresh eyes in this case and look at it from the perspective of a defense attorney. Who might have killed JonBenet as an intruder, not just the parents, but from the outside?
Boulder DA Alex Hunter brought Lou Smith out of retirement to help solve the Ramsey case.
One of the great challenges is to try to do the case right. And, I think we're making efforts to meet that challenge by involving people like Lou Smith.
The legendary investigator Lou Smith. He had a history of closing cases.
He had such tenacity. He was a bulldog. Once he got something in his mind, once he got the reins in his teeth, he was not letting go.
Lou Smith was my father. He was just known as, the detective that solved cases. When he got to a murder scene, he spent time dictating everything he saw. Where the sun was in the sky, what the weather conditions were like, what the neighboring houses looked like.
Our grandfather was a detective on one of the biggest unsolved murders in our generation. Prior to this case, Lou Smith had investigated over 200 homicide cases that led to arrests and convictions. Lou dedicated a big part of his life to finding JonBenet's murderer.
When he started his investigation, he felt like everybody else did, that it was probably one of the two parents.
It seemed as though the parents were probably involved in it. I thought this would be a fairly easy case. I thought it would be a slam dunk. And I even remember talking to my daughter. I kind of joked with her, saying that, if somebody did get in the house, it must have been Santa Claus coming down the chimney.
It was within a couple of days after my dad started on the investigation, when he had a chance to review pictures, the evidence, that he was already saying, I think that they need to look the other way. He was already noting in his journal that he felt that they needed to look at an intruder.
Lou came up with the intruder theory. You can't think about that theory without associating it with Lou Smit.
The first thing that stood out to him was an open window in the basement. There was a suitcase propped up against it.
He didn't buy the Boulder Police Department's conclusion that no one could get in that basement window. He began to say maybe somebody did get into that house.
I'll show you how easily it can be done.
So what did Lou Smit do? He went and climbed in the window himself with a camera rolling to prove that it could be done.
It really wasn't that difficult coming in that window.
But some say that the idea of somebody going in the window is complicated by something else that's spotted in the images of the crime scene.
When you go to a photograph of the actual window, there are cobwebs in the window, which could support that no one did go through this window. The big question is, could you have gotten through this window, this small window, without disturbing this cobweb? I think the answer to that is maybe. But the other important point is, how soon was this picture taken after John Bonet was killed? Because spiders can replicate webs very fast.
Also found in the basement by John Bonet's body, a shoe print, high-tech brand that did not match any shoes in the Ramseys' house. And then there's the high-tech footprint as well.
Then there's the high-tech footprint found next to John Bonet that I think the investigators believe, and maybe rightly so, that that's the bad guy's footprint.
Some argue the footprint could have been inadvertently left by police officers there at the scene. But another factor in Lou Smit's investigation, two strange marks on John Bonet's face and back.
The marks themselves, both on the back and on the face, were the same distance apart. Suddenly a little light went on, and it was just like, wait a minute, it was a stun gun.
Smit looked at other murders where a stun gun was known to have been used. He examined images of a crime victim who had a known stun gun injury.
And the marks are very similar to the face of John Bonet.
He also looked into an experiment performed using stun guns on pigs. These marks were also the same as the marks found on John Bonet.
When we did the pigs, we get perfect marks, just almost like on the back of John Bonet.
This brings back our grandpa's whole motto that things are usually what they seem. Don't make it complicated.
There's no reason at all for the Ramseys to use a stun gun, and the Ramseys don't have a stun gun. If it's not a stun gun, what is it? That's the question I always ask. You tell me what it is.
So everybody sort of poo-pooed and ridiculed the intruder theory until Lou Smit started to stand up and point out things that everybody else, from the Boulder PD to the general public at large, had overlooked or dismissed. He said, wait a second, we need to look at this again. It actually is possible. It actually is plausible. And in his view of it, it's actually the most likely thing that happened.
The police and the district attorney are at odds. The DA is looking at the intruder theory, the police focused on the parents, but both want to get the Ramseys to come in for a formal videotaped interrogation.
Go back to the damn drawing board. I didn't do it.
Lou Smit thought that the Ramseys were being targeted unfairly.
I thought there was something drastically wrong. I had seen evidence of an intruder.
Within a few weeks of John Bonet's murder, police had an important clue: the discovery of foreign DNA on her body.
Crime scene detectives discovered DNA underneath John Bonet's fingernails and in her underwear that did not match anybody in the Ramsey family. That was not something that was made public for quite a long time.
They knew at the time that there was DNA in her panties, that it was mixed foreign DNA, and that it was not the Ramsey's DNA. Not Patsy's, not John's, and not Burke's.
Detective Lou Smith was like, whoa, while you're pouring water all over the intruder theory, you're not revealing that you have found unidentified DNA and it doesn't match anybody in the Ramsey family.
Lou is just incensed that the focus is still being, well, it could be Patsy, maybe we need to get her to confess.
The Ramseys had been interrogated by police 4 months after John Bonet's death. But now authorities want the Ramseys to come in again for a formal videotaped interrogation.
There were months and months of negotiations. Things about whether they could be videotaped. What are the questions going to be? Should the Boulder police be a part of it? Because the Ramseys said, we don't trust the police. We don't want them there.
Ultimately, the interrogation took place at a different police department.
And at the end, the Boulder police had to watch it from another building.
The Ramseys finally sit down with the police for a videotaped interrogation in June 1998, a year and a half after Jean Bonet's murder.
Today is Wednesday, June 24th, 1998. I'm present at the Broomfield Police Department. Tricia Ramsey.
Tom Haney, who was one of the most respected homicide detectives out of Denver, was chosen to interview Patsy Ramsey.
Patsy Ramsey had a year and a half to prepare. I knew that it was going to be tough to get a spontaneous response.
Do you ever recall purchasing black duct tape like this? It seems like there can't be a house in the world that doesn't have duct tape because it repairs everything.
Well, I never liked it because it's so gooey. Isn't it gooey?
He started out softly and kindly and curious, and then he got pointed with his questions, and that made Patsy angry.
If I told you right now that we have, in the process of being examined, trace evidence that appears to link you to the death of John Bonet, what would you tell me?
Just tell me to go retest.
How is it impossible?
I did not kill my child. I didn't have a thing to do with it.
She said it was impossible that we had physical evidence linking her to the crime.
I'm talking about scientific evidence.
I don't give a flying flip how scientific it is.
So, but they're trying to say, Patsy, that their actions before, during, and after are all consistent with innocent people. You didn't do it.
My dad started getting frustrated as time went on because he felt that the case against the Ramseys was being slanted where no other evidence was coming in.
I thought there was something drastically wrong and that there was a gross injustice in this case. I had seen evidence of an intruder in the house that night.
Lou Smith thought that the Ramseys were being targeted unfairly, and he didn't believe the police were listening to him.
Smith so strongly disagrees with the prosecutor's focus on the Ramseys that he is resigning from the case, saying, "The case tells me John and Patsy Ramsey did not kill their daughter."
He wrote a letter to Alex Hunter telling them that he couldn't be a part of the persecution of these people, is how he termed it.
He wrote, "I intend to stand with this family and somehow help them through this and find the killer of their daughter."
My dad may have resigned from the district attorney's office, but he never stopped work on the case. He walked in John Bonet's shoes, and he owed it to her, he felt, to continue his investigation.
One thing Lou Smith fought to do was tell a grand jury his side of the story, the intruder theory.
There were too many questions, in particular, that DNA in the underwear that appears to have been from a man didn't match anyone they knew of.
Grand jurors arrived at the Boulder County Justice Center this morning and were escorted into the courthouse by sheriff's deputies.
I think Alex Hunter got shamed into calling a grand jury. I mean, he didn't do it until September 1998, almost 2 years later. And I think the media pressure and the pressure from the police department forced him to do it.
Good morning, Counsel.
And remember, this is after O.J. Simpson, where most people think the evidence of Simpson's guilt was insurmountable.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
And yet, he walked. Alex remembered that. He told me one time, I don't want to spend 2 years of my life and $5 million of the taxpayers' money and lose in court.
Alex Hunter sent a grand jury for 13 months.
Are you surprised by anything you've seen?
No.
Over 13 months, those people heard over 100 witnesses.
My name is Jonathan Webb. I was a grand juror on the JonBenet Ramsey case. It bothers me that the murder of a little girl like this has gone on unsolved for essentially a quarter century.
Members of the Boulder grand jury looked very much like detectives themselves as they finally toured the Ramsey house.
From a crime scene perspective, it was very disturbing how she was found. She's on a concrete floor, a garrote around her neck, and she's 6 years old. That's pretty horrible.
Webb told us that the grand jury spent most of their time focused on two main issues. First, who wrote that ransom note?
We heard from 3 handwriting experts, and even though the handwriting experts couldn't definitively say that she wrote it, they all 3 came to the same conclusion that it could have been Patsy Ramsey.
The Ramsey defense team had their own experts who said that the comparison between the writing on the ransom note and Patsy's handwriting was not conclusive. We asked an expert to weigh in on the case.
My name is Jennifer Nasso. I am a forensic document examiner. Handwriting is a great piece of evidence to have because you can identify the writer of a piece of writing. Throughout the ransom note, there's potential that the author attempted to disguise their writing. It doesn't look smooth and fluid. It's very, very shaky. So it looks like someone was purposely trying to shake their hand to alter the way that the writing looks. This is an example from the ransom note, where you see that kind of typewritten formation of the letter A. This is also from the ransom note, where you see that regular printed A. There are similarities between the ransom note and Patsy Ramsey's writing. However, the similarities that are seen are very general in nature. They're characteristics that many people execute within their writing. So here is another example. This formation seen in the ransom note is 2 strokes where there's the stroke downward, the pen is lifted up, and then the bowl is created. Right here, again, from the ransom note, where it starts the formation of the bowl and terminates upward. So down here are examples of Patsy Ramsey's known writing. And you do see some of those formations again. That is significant that we see each of the formations represented, but keep in mind this is one letter from the whole ransom note. Is it possible that Patsy Ramsey wrote the ransom note? Yes. Is it possible someone else wrote the ransom note? Yes.
And the grand jury believed that she wrote it.
The second focus for this grand jury, according to Jonathan Webb, was the viability of the intruder theory.
Smith actually presented his intruder theory to the grand jury.
This is the very first photo taken of the training room basement window. The window is wide open. Now, if I was a detective, I'd have said, wow, this is entry.
But the grand jury wasn't buying the intruder theory because of those cobwebs in the window.
The intruder theory didn't make sense to the grand jury. The Boulder police had photographed cobwebs. So for someone to get through a small opening like that and not disturbing a cobweb would be remarkable.
A grand jury does not decide guilt or innocence the way a regular jury does. The grand jury is only there to decide whether or not there is probable cause to charge the suspects with a crime.
We were troubled by to what level of confidence do we need to have to vote to indict? And it's the preponderance of the evidence. which means greater than 50%. And soon after that, we voted to indict.
Both Patsy and John are accused of permitting a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation which posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBenet Ramsey. And then in the other one, did unlawfully, knowingly, and feloniously render assistance to a person with intent to hinder the apprehension of the person. These two things together make it clear that the grand jury couldn't point the finger at one or the other, but that they were convinced that it was one of the two of them and that the other one helped.
This is 7 News at 5.
There is high anticipation in Boulder right now for a Ramsey decision, and we are about to hear an announcement from Boulder DA Alex Hunter.
I and my prosecution task force believe we do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time.
I was shocked. It's extremely unusual for a grand jury to vote to charge and the DA not charge.
And you think it was the right decision?
I think it was the right decision. I think no matter what you think about the case, I think that they would never have gotten a conviction.
Thank you very much.
There were too many questions, in particular, that DNA in the underwear that appears to have been from a man didn't match anyone they knew of.
We've done all this work to try and vet the Ramseys. What work have we done to truly vet other potential suspects in this case?
That's why Lou Smith continued investigating even after he resigned from the case.
Lou Smith calls me cold, and I said to him, I've been praying for somebody to call and one to listen. Well, I believe a friend of mine killed her.
But I think what turned this whole case has always been DNA. The killer left behind, I believe, part of his DNA.
Over nearly 13 years, Lou took all of the information that he had on this case and developed a database. In this particular murder, he thought that DNA would solve this case.
But Lou Smith couldn't have imagined the advances in DNA that were to come, advances that would lead to a number of big surprises in the case.
What was developed is a thing called touch DNA. So I just touched this picture, I touched the table. I've now left skin cells on both locations. In theory, that could be scraped, and they could match that up to my DNA.
In 2008, the then district attorney for Boulder, Mary Lacey, decided to do a new round of DNA testing on JonBenet's pajama leggings.
More than a decade later, the items were retested and they found something new. Remember, the previous analysis had already found DNA from an unknown male under JonBenet's fingernails and in her underwear. Now, this new touch DNA uncovered DNA from at least one unknown male, maybe two, on her leggings as well.
That's a pretty big thing. That's a pretty clear indication that somebody else was there. You've got DNA now in 3 places on JonBenet's body that doesn't match anybody in the Ramsey family, anybody, and nobody knows whose it is.
And so I think that's what drove the district attorney to make a comment that she's basically not going to look at the family any longer.
The news broke here at the district attorney's office with this incredible letter to JonBenet's father.
DA Mary Lacey wrote John Ramsey, "We do not consider your immediate family, including you, your wife Patsy, and your son Burke, to be under any suspicion in the commission of this crime."
John Ramsey appeared on a local newscast.
We're certainly grateful for an acknowledgement that we are innocent, that this was an intruder, which of course we've always maintained.
Somewhere, somehow, there may be a match to that DNA. Then you got your killer.
Our killer, JonBenet, how many victims has he had in the past? And how many victims is he going to have in the future? And so this killer could still be murdering even today.
Lou Smith spent years organizing and investigating the evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey murder case, but eventually he ran out of time.
When he got sick with cancer, he knew that his time was limited. And so during that time, he just talked to others about not letting this case die.
He had people coming every single day, 60 to 70, 80 people a day, coming to see him. And they said their goodbyes. And during that time, he would still talk about the case.
I remember about the last 3 days, he had slipped into a coma, and the conversations would become one way, and I don't know if he could hear me or not.
It's very much an honor to be here to celebrate Lou Smith's life and to share my thoughts with you. I'm John Ramsey. I had the opportunity to visit Lou a week before he died. Remarkably, during that time together, Lou talked a lot about the case. He hadn't given up. He never gave up.
When Lou Smith died, he passed the torch of the JonBenet Ramsey investigation onto his daughter, Cindy Mara, and she took it.
And he just said, I have a name. I want you to write it down. And I did. And he said, that's where you start.
You know, we'd be glad to pay that. We don't have that electronic report, so we would need Boulder to send it.
After my dad died, a couple of us, our family, and then some of his old homicide partners, we just formed a team.
You want to go down to number 2, because that is an in-state one.
Yep.
What we all share in common is that commitment to fulfill Lou's dying wish that this case doesn't die with him. And I think it's that devotion, that respect, that love for Lou is what keeps our team moving forward.
There were a whole host of other possible suspects.
This is Bill McReynolds, the local Santa in town.
There's no way in the world that I could be involved in the death of this little girl. I adored her.
What a perfect suspect. Santa Claus. Wouldn't that have just tied it all up in a nice little bow?
Grandpa stated that if you can't show me a motive, show me evidence of bad character. If you can't show me evidence of bad character, show me evidence.
He had condensed everything he knew about every person of interest into a spreadsheet.
The team that his family created is confident that the killer's name is on that spreadsheet.
So what do we know about the person suspected of killing JonBenet Ramsey? The DA says the genetic profile from the DNA belongs to a male.
There were a whole host of other possible suspects, ranging from known criminals to friends of the Ramseys.
Brad, investigators looked beyond the Ramsey family. In fact, there was some speculation into potential involvement by 2 local men, correct?
Correct. Here you have Gary Oliva.
He was a homeless man who hung out at a church just a block and a half from the Ramseys' home. And he confessed that he killed JonBenet Ramsey. In fact, he called a friend right after she was killed, crying, sobbing, saying he'd just killed a little girl.
They took a look at him, but eventually eliminated him because there's absolutely no connection between he and the Ramseys, and his DNA, they used that to eliminate him. This is Bill McReynolds, the local Santa in town.
I was the Santa Claus for 3 years at their party, and I always liked the Ramsey party, so I called Patsy in particular and said it's time for our party.
And apparently JonBenet had made a comment that he, Bill McReynolds, was coming to their house to see JonBenet. I think everybody thought that was a little weird. His DNA didn't match, and he's out of the picture.
And then this is someone who actually gets brought up quite a bit. This is Michael Helgoth, and this was high on Lou Smith's list.
Michael Helgoth was an interesting character.
Lou Smith calls me cold, and I said to him, I've been praying for somebody to call and want to listen. Mike said he wanted to kill himself to get it over with, and that's one thing. And then he said that him and a partner were going to make $50,000 or $60,000 at Christmas. He wanted to crack a human skull.
Michael Helgoth evidently committed suicide the day after the Boulder District Attorney
threatened that, hey, we're going to find you.
The list of suspects narrows. Soon there will be no one on the list but you.
So he committed suicide after authorities said they were narrowing their list.
Right.
He had a stun gun and he had high-tech boots.
Correct. Stun gun, a bit odd for people to have. High-tech boots, fairly common thing for people to have. But the real clincher would be DNA didn't match, and he has no connection to the Ramsey family.
So he was ruled out.
And he was ruled out.
And then Brad, who could forget John Mark Carr?
Of course.
He made quite the headline.
I love JonBenet. Died accidentally. No.
Everyone probably around the world knows John Mark Carr.
Her death was an accident.
So you were in the basement?
Yes.
Problem is, he wasn't in Boulder, Colorado when she died, and his DNA didn't match.
And that was it. He was ruled out. What does it say about the state of this case and the possibility of ever solving it?
Well, that's a big question.
We went through the people of interest, the suspects, and came up with our top 20.
Take a look at it and run it through their program.
What our team has been doing is focusing on collecting DNA and testing DNA.
Do you want to get in touch with them? Who wants to?
I think we should make the effort.
Do you want to just start like maybe in September?
And since Lou has passed away, the team has been able to clear a number of people from that list. However, the work is pretty slow because of the time and expense involved in locating somebody on that sheet and obtaining their DNA and then testing it.
We have asked suspects for their DNA, and in other cases we've, I guess, done it the old-fashioned way with surveillance and trickery.
We've gotten together and followed people and gotten a discarded cup or some such thing.
So the DNA is evolving constantly, so we're in better position today than we've ever been to solve the JonBenet Ramsey case.
We are just trying to eliminate people from that list, and we just figure if we keep at it, hopefully we'll finally whittle it down to one person remaining on that list.
Lou Smith's family believes that all but one person on that list is innocent.
Who murdered JonBenet Ramsey?
Will the case ever be prosecuted?
Is it still just as mysterious today as it was in 1996?
Absolutely.
I think it's even more mysterious now to some degree because people have moved away from John and Patsy Ramsey as possible suspects. And so then you're sort of faced with this question of,
who the heck was in that house? How'd they get in? Why'd they target her?
And to some degree, that makes it even more fascinating.
There was a person seen going across the lawn of the Ramsey house the night of the murder. Was there a killer trying to get into the house?
In September, we met with the Boulder DA's office and PD.
And what we presented was a confidential list of our top 20 people of interest and the list of the 8 people of interest that our team had eliminated through DNA analysis.
We just don't feel at this point that they are actively investigating this case.
The Boulder Police Department says the Ramsey case is an active, ongoing investigation, but they have never publicly commented on the handling of the case.
This team isn't going to give up. There's a third generation.
My daughters and others that will continue on with this case when we end up being too old to do it. But we're not going to stop investigating. We're just not going to do it.
This case boils down to intruder or Ramsey. And if the Ramseys didn't do it, then it's an intruder. And if it's an intruder, the intruder is still out there.
The case took its toll on the whole Ramsey family emotionally and financially over the years. John Ramsey would lose his job and spend millions on private investigators, lawyers, and security.
There are still people today, John, 22 years later, who believe you or Patsy or Burke had something to do with the murder of JonBenet.
I know that. And how could they have believed otherwise? Because that's what they were told. You know, even if we have a conviction, confession, and this person's in prison, there's going to be 5–10% of the population that still thinks we're guilty.
My dad certainly suffered a tremendous amount, but I think he's focused on life today and enjoying life with his family and grandkids, and he's remarried. Patsy died from cancer in 2006. She's buried in Marietta, Georgia, next to JonBenet.
In my mind, she's still my 6-year-old little